Disclaimer: it is 100% audio-only content in easy-to-understand English. It is also an AI-generated voiceovers and text-to-speech narration book summary videos, which are not functionally identical videos like generic calming sounds or fact sideshows. Instead, get fresh narrative and educational substance along with providing original content and different from each other's similar content between videos, but each videos talks specifically about a different book that I am featuring. Also, adds meaningful value and does not mislead viewers. I do not post any templated or programmatically generated book summary that appears to be from content farms. These book summaries are originally created by myself and narrated by paid premium human-like AI text-to-speech voiceover platforms like 11 Labs. I do not post similar, repetitive, mass-produced, low-effort content or mindless content with slideshows or scrolling text that lacks unique commentary or creative transformation. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Welcome to Videobook's YouTube channel. I won't ask you to like or subscribe because I know you've already done that. I'll ask you to comment where you're watching the video from. Prologue. The prologue opens with Lina Emerson reflecting on the concept of bad days, the kind where your alarm doesn't go off, your toast catches on fire, and you realize too late that all your clothes are soaking wet in the washer, forcing you to go to school looking like a mess and getting called out by your teacher in front of everyone. She acknowledges that everyone has those days, but then she pivots to describe the truly devastating kind of bad days, the ones that are so overwhelmingly awful that they destroy everything you care about, except for a radio commercial narrated by two Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonators, and despite it being a hot day, Lina had goosebumps up and down her legs. Just that morning she had placed second at her first ever cross-country meet, and she couldn't believe how much that achievement no longer mattered. Her mother switched off the radio and asked Lina what she was feeling, her voice calm and steady, and when Lina looked at her, she teared up all over again. Her mother was so pale and tiny, and Lina couldn't believe she hadn't noticed how tiny she had gotten. Lina struggled to find words, saying she felt like she was in shock, and her mother nodded, coming to a stop at a traffic light while the sun blazed in through the windshield, scalding Lina's eyes. Lina had a sudden, devastating realization. This was the day that changes everything, and from here on out there would only be before and after today. Her mother cleared her throat and straightened up, and then she asked Lina if she had ever told her about the time she was dared to swim in a fountain. Lina was completely thrown by the question, whipping around in confusion. Her mother went on to explain that she'd spent a year studying in Florence, and she was out photographing with her classmates on a scorching hot day when her friend Howard dared her to jump into a fountain. She had popped out of the water and scared a group of German tourists posing for a photo, causing one of them to lose her balance and almost fall in with her. The tourists were furious, so Howard yelled that she was drowning and jumped in after her. Lina stared at her mother in disbelief, wondering why she was telling such a random, almost absurd story at a moment like this. Her mother gave her a little smile, and Lina asked why she was telling her this now. Her mother simply said she wanted to tell her about Howard, that he was really a lot of fun, and then she hit the gas as the light changed. At first, Lina thought the fountain story was a coping mechanism, a way for her mother to distract them from the crushing news of her terminal cancer, but then her mother told another story, and then another, and it reached the point where Lina knew within 3 words that her mother was going to bring up Howard. And then, when her mother finally revealed the reason for all the Howard stories, Lina realized that ignorance truly is bliss. In mid-November, Lina was sitting next to her mother's hospital bed with a stack of ancient Cosmopolitan magazines she had swiped from the waiting room, taking a quiz called On a Scale of 1 to Sizzle, How Hot Are You?, when her mother told her she wanted her to go to Italy. Lina was distracted, trying to figure out how the person who had taken the quiz before her had scored a 10 out of 10, so she didn't fully process what her mother was saying. Her mother clarified that she wanted Lina to go live in Italy after she died, and that got Lina's attention. She didn't believe in after, and she refused to accept that her mother was going to die, having just bookmarked an article about a woman who had beaten cancer and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Lina asked why she would do that, trying to sound light and humor her mother, but her mother insisted that she wanted Lina to stay with Howard, that the year she spent in Italy meant so much to her, and she wanted Lina to have that same experience. Lina was shocked and demanded to know if the doctors had given her too much morphine. Her mother used her bossiest voice to get Lina to look at her, and Lina questioned whether Howard was the guy she kept talking about. Her mother confirmed it, calling him the best man she had ever known, and insisting he would keep Lina safe. Lina demanded to know safe from what, and when she looked into her mother's eyes, she suddenly started having trouble breathing, realizing how serious her mother was. Her mother explained that things would be hard and that Lina would need someone after she was gone, and she believed Howard was the best person for the job. Lina jumped up, rifling through the drawers for a paper bag, insisting that it didn't make sense to go live with a stranger. Her mother ordered her to sit, telling her she was going to be fine. Her life would go on, and it was going to be great. Lina refused to accept that, saying sometimes people recover, but her mother pressed on, insisting that Howard was a wonderful friend and Lina would really love him. Lina doubted that, and she asked why, if he was such a good friend, she had never met him before. She gave up on finding a paper bag and collapsed back into her chair, putting her head between her knees. Her mother struggled to sit up and reached out, resting her hand on Lina's back, admitting that things had been complicated between them, but that Howard wanted to get to know her and would love to have her stay with him. She made Lina promise to give it a try for at least a few months. A nurse knocked on the door and came in, and Lina's mother told her they were discussing her daughter going to Italy. The nurse enthusiastically agreed that Italy would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and Lina's mother smiled triumphantly. Lina refused again, but she knew deep down that she had no choice. The nurse ended up being right about one thing. Lina did have to go, but no one gave her even the tiniest hint about what she would find once she got there. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 1. The chapter opens with Lina arriving at Howard's house in Italy, and from the very first moment she is struck by the sheer strangeness of her new surroundings. The house looms brightly in the distance like a lighthouse in a sea of headstones, and Lina desperately hopes that this cannot possibly be Howard's house. She tries to convince herself that they are just following some kind of Italian custom, that always driving newcomers through a cemetery is just a way to give them a feel for the local culture. But as the car gets closer and closer to the property, her stomach drops in horror, and she watches the house emerge from the depths of the cemetery like the shark in Jaws. There's only one turn left, and Lina tells herself not to panic, that this cannot be it, that her mother would have warned her if she was sending her to live in a cemetery. But then Howard flips on his turn signal, and all the air rushes out of Lina's lungs. Her mother just did not tell her. Howard notices her distress and asks if she's okay, and Lina manages to wheeze out a question asking if that is his house. He confirms that it is, hesitating for a moment before asking if she knew about all of this. Lina explains that her grandmother told her she would be staying on American-owned land, that Howard is the caretaker of a World War II memorial, but she had no idea it was a cemetery. Panic pours over her like hot syrup, and she struggles to breathe, telling herself that she has already survived the worst and she can survive this too. Howard points to a building at the far end of the property, explaining that the memorial is there, but the rest of the grounds are for the graves of American soldiers killed in Italy during the war. Lina asks if this is his actual house, not just where he works, but Howard does not answer. He pulls into the driveway, and Lina feels the last of her hope fade along with the car's headlights. The house is not just a house, it is a home, with red geraniums lining the walkway and a porch swing creaking back and forth as if someone just got up. Subtract the crosses lining the surrounding lawns, and it could be any normal house in any normal neighborhood, but it is not a normal neighborhood, and those crosses are not going anywhere. Howard explains that they like to have a caretaker on site at all times, so they built the house back in the 1960s. He takes the keys out of the ignition and nervously drums his fingers on the steering wheel, apologizing profusely and saying he cannot imagine what Lina is thinking right now. Lina's voice comes out like weak tea as she states that it is a cemetery, and Howard acknowledges that it is, and that the last thing she needs is a reminder of everything she has been through that year. But he insists that she will find the place grows on her, that it is really peaceful and has a lot of interesting history, and that her mother loved it. He has been there for almost 17 years and cannot imagine living anywhere else. Lina slumps back in her seat, a swarm of questions taking flight in her mind. Why did her mother never tell her about this place? Why did she never talk about Howard until she got sick? And for the love of all that is holy, what made her leave out the detail that Howard is her father? Lina's grandmother had been the one to fill in those blanks, and Lina realizes she probably should have seen it coming. But the truth of Howard's identity seemed like something her mother would have at least mentioned. Howard gets out of the car and retrieves Lina's suitcase, and she watches his towering figure in the side mirror trying to collect herself before she has to face him. He closes the trunk, and Lina straightens up, rifling through her backpack to buy herself a few more seconds. She tells herself to think that she's alone in a foreign country. A certifiable giant has just stepped forward as her father, and her new home could be the setting for a zombie apocalypse movie. But what can she do? Short of wresting the car keys from Howard, she cannot think of a single way to get out of going into that house. She finally unbuckles her seatbelt and follows him to the front door. Inside, the house is aggressively normal, like it thinks it can make up for its location if it just tries hard enough. Howard sets her suitcase down in the entryway, and they walk into a living room with 2 overstuffed chairs and a leather sofa. There are vintage travel posters on the walls, and the whole place smells like it has been soaking in garlic and onions, but in a good way. Howard switches on the main light and says, "Welcome home," but he winces when he sees Lina's expression, quickly correcting himself to say, "Welcome to Italy." A tall, gazelle-like woman steps into the room, and Lina is surprised by her presence. She's a few years older than Howard, with coffee-colored skin and rows of gold bracelets on each arm, and she is absolutely gorgeous. The woman, Sonia, greets Lina and asks about her flights, and Lina awkwardly asks if she is Howard's wife. Howard and Sonia look at each other and burst into laughter, and Howard explains that Sonia is the assistant superintendent of the cemetery and has been working there even longer than he has. Sonia clarifies that her house is on the property too, a little closer to the memorial, and when Lina asks how many people live there, she learns that it is just Howard, Sonia, and now her, plus about 4,000 soldiers. Sonia offers to make lasagna, and Howard is thrilled because it is her specialty with extra garlicky garlic bread. Lina goes to wash her hands in the miniature bathroom, and when she catches a glimpse of herself in the mirror, she groans at how terrible she looks, with dark circles under her eyes and her curly hair defying the laws of physics. She tries to tame it but gives up, deciding that fathers are supposed to accept you as you are. When Lina walks into the dining room, the table is set with a red checkered cloth, and an old rock song is playing from an iPod by the entryway. Howard is much more relaxed now that Sonia is there, and he tells Lina that her grandmother mentioned she loves running, averaging about 40 miles a week and hoping to run in college. Lina admits that she used to be on the varsity cross-country team, but forfeited her spot when they found out about her mother's cancer, because practice took up too much time, and she did not want to leave town for meets. Howard suggests that the cemetery is a great place for a runner, with lots of space and smooth roads. Sonia reveals that she and Lina's mother were friends, that Hadley was lovely and talented and lively, and Lina is stunned to learn another thing her mother never told her. After dinner, Howard insists on carrying Lina's suitcase upstairs and shows her to her room. He has repainted and redecorated it, and it is perfect, with a gold lamp, an antique bed with 1,000 decorative pillows, a painted desk and dresser, and empty picture frames waiting to be filled. Lina is touched by the effort and starts to think things might not be so bad, but then a gust of wind blows into the room and draws her attention to the large open window. She walks over and looks out, and the headstones gleam in the moonlight like rows of teeth, everything dark and eerily silent. No amount of pretty can make up for a view like that, and Lina knows that her time in Italy is going to be a lot more complicated than she ever imagined. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 2. The chapter opens with Lina reflecting on her friendship with Addie and how it all began in 7th grade. Addie had just moved to Seattle from Los Angeles, and one day after gym class she overheard Sadie Daines making a cruel comment about how some of their classmates did not actually need bras. In 7th grade, only about 1% of girls actually needed bras, and Lina was particularly less in need of one than most. Everyone knew Sadie had meant her, and while Lina just ignored the comment and blinked back tears in her locker, Addie took it upon herself to clothesline Sadie on her way out of the locker room. Addie stuck up for Lina that day, and then never stopped. Now, Addie is the kind of friend who makes Lina feel normal, who got her out of the house on runs after her mother's funeral and insisted she do things like eat and shower. Addie is the kind of friend Lina knows she could not possibly deserve. Lina calls Addie using Howard's cell phone, and when Addie answers, she has to fight off her brother Ian, who keeps trying to grab the phone. Addie explains that Ian's phone got run over, and now she is being forced to share, and she is furious because she does not want his caveman friends having her phone number. Lina laughs and says they are not that bad, but Addie insists they are, describing how she walked in on one of them eating an entire box of cereal from a mixing bowl with a soup ladle. Lina smiles and shuts her eyes for a moment, feeling grateful for Addie's ability to make her feel normal. Addie asks about Howard, and Lina tells her that she needs to get out of there right away. Addie is immediately concerned, asking if Howard is a creep, and Lina assures her he's not, that he is actually kind of okay, and surprisingly NBA tall, but that is not the bad part. She takes a deep breath for dramatic effect and reveals that Howard is the caretaker of a cemetery, which means she has to live in a cemetery. Addie shrieks in horror, asking if Howard is a grave digger or something, and Lina explains that there are no burials anymore because all the graves are from World War II. Addie is outraged on Lina's behalf, saying it is not fair that she lost her mother and now has to move halfway across the world to live with a stranger who lives in a cemetery. Lina admits that if she had known what she was getting into, she would have pushed back harder, describing the weirdness of the headstones everywhere and how isolated she feels. Addie immediately offers to come get her, but she only has $300 after an incident with a fire hydrant. Lina jokes that it was not Addie's fault. She cannot control herself when old-school Britney Spears comes on the radio, and she offers to help pay for the repairs. Addie refuses, saying Lina will need her money to get home from Italy, and she promises to talk to her parents about Lina living with them again. Lina points out that it is her grandmother they need to worry about convincing, because she's super on board with Lina living in Italy. Addie does not understand why her grandmother would send her halfway across the world to be with a stranger, but Lina explains that her grandmother is thinking about moving into an assisted care center because taking care of Lina's grandfather is getting to be too much. Addie is undeterred, promising to take Lina's grandmother out for butterscotch candies and convince her that the Bennett house is the best option. Lina thanks Addie, and there is a brief silence as she listens to the sounds of insects and Howard's music downstairs. Addie asks why she's being so quiet, and Lina admits she's worried about sound traveling in the house and not knowing if Howard can hear her. Addie suggests they come up with a code word so she knows if Lina is being held hostage, but Lina clarifies she's not being held hostage, except maybe to the promise she made to her mother. Addie questions whether promises count if they are made under false pretenses, pointing out that Lina's mother was not exactly forthcoming about why she wanted her to go to Italy. Lina sighs, hoping there was some reason for that, and Addie says maybe. Lina looks over her shoulder at the window, and even though she knows she's in a cemetery, the moon skimming the dark tree line is crazy pretty. She says she should go because she's using Howard's phone and it is probably costing a fortune. Addie tells her to call again as soon as she can, promising they will have her out of there in no time. Lina asks how they say goodbye in Italy, and Addie guesses something like chew or chow, and Lina corrects her, saying it is chow. They say goodbye, and Lina sets the phone on the desk, her throat tight with missing her friend already. There is a knock at the door, and Lina practically tips over in her chair when she hears Howard's voice. She scrambles to her feet and opens the door a couple of inches, and Howard is standing in the hallway holding a stack of folded white towels stacked up like a wedding cake. He apologizes for interrupting and says he forgot to give them to her, and Lina studies his face, wondering if he overheard her conversation with Addie. She hesitates for a second, then opens the door wider and takes the towels, handing him back his phone. Howard asks what she thinks of her room, and she says it is great and really pretty. A big relieved grin spreads across his face, making him look about 100 pounds lighter, and he leans against the door frame, explaining that a friend helped him paint the desk and dresser and that Sonia and he found the mirror at a flea market. Lina feels a pang of guilt at the image of him traipsing around Italy looking for things he thought she would like, and she tells him he did not have to go to all that trouble. He insists it was no trouble and smiles again, and there is a long, uncomfortable pause. The whole night has felt like being on a blind date with someone she has nothing in common with, except it is worse because they do have something in common. They just are not talking about it. Howard says goodnight and his footsteps fade down the hall, and Lina locks the door, exhaustion finally hitting her. She puts the towels on her dresser, kicks off her shoes, and takes a flying leap onto the bed, sending decorative pillows in every direction. The bed is as soft as it looks, and the sheets smell like when her mother used to hang theirs on the line to dry. She wriggles under the covers and switches off the lamp, and loud laughter erupts from downstairs as Howard and Sonia do the dishes or play a loud round of indoor croquet. Lina has just drifted into a murky half-sleep when she hears Howard's voice saying she's really quiet. Her eyes snap open, and Sonia answers that she does not think that is surprising considering the scenario. Howard lowers his voice, saying it was just kind of a surprise because Hadley was so lively. Sonia agrees that Hadley was lively, but she suggests that Lina might surprise him and might have some of her mother's oomph. Howard laughs quietly and says that is one way to put it, and Sonia tells him to give her a little time. She says goodnight, and her footsteps crunch down the gravel driveway, and the front door opens and closes again. Lina forces her eyes shut, but it is like she has soda pop running through her veins. What had Howard expected? That she would be overjoyed about moving in with someone she had never met? That she would be super excited about living in a cemetery? It is not like it was a big secret that she had not wanted to come here, and she had only agreed when her grandmother pulled out the big guns and reminded her of her promise to her mother. She hates being called quiet, and she thinks about how her mother always understood that she may be slow to warm up, but once she does, she lights up the whole room. Tears flood her eyes, and she rolls over, pressing her face into her pillow. Now that it has been more than 6 months, she can sometimes go whole hours pretending to be okay without her mother. But it never lasts long. She has to live the whole rest of her life without her, and she really does not know how she's going to do it. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 3. The chapter opens with Lina being abruptly woken up by the sound of voices practically in her ear. She sits bolt upright, disoriented and confused, and slowly realizes she's in her bedroom at the cemetery, now saturated with sunlight and feeling like it is 890 degrees. A woman's voice with a thick southern accent is calling out, asking if anyone is home, and a man's voice responds that the building looks like a private residence and they should not be poking around. The woman ignores him and continues calling out, and Lina pushes off her covers and gets out of bed, tripping over decorative pillows. She's still fully dressed, having been too tired to even think about pajamas the night before. She gathers her hair into a bun so she will not scare anyone, then goes over to the window to see 2 people who match their voices exactly. The woman has fire engine red hair and wears high-waisted shorts, and the man wears a fishing hat and has a massive camera around his neck. They're even wearing fanny packs, and Lina stifles a giggle because Addie and she once won a costume contest dressed as tacky tourists, and these 2 could have been their inspiration. The woman, who has a name tag reading, "Hello, my name is Gloria," points at Lina and asks if she speaks English, and Lina confirms that she is American too. Gloria is thrilled and asks where they can find Howard Mercer, the superintendent, and Lina explains she is new here and does not know. Gloria settles her weight into one hip, making it clear she's not going anywhere, and Lina agrees to check if Howard is in the house. She changes into running clothes, then heads downstairs to look for Howard. The main floor is small, and besides Howard's bedroom, the only room she has not seen yet is the study. She knocks and then pushes her way inside, and the walls are lined with framed Beatles albums and photographs. She stops to look at a picture of Howard and a few other people throwing buckets of water on a huge, gorgeous elephant, and Howard is wearing cargo pants and a safari hat looking like the star of an adventure nature show. Lina is struck by the realization that he has obviously not spent the past 16 years sitting around missing her mother and her. She heads for the front door to tell the tourists she cannot help them, but when she walks into the living room, she jumps like she has stepped on a live wire. Gloria has pressed her face up against the window and is peering in at her like an enormous bug, mouthing "over here" and pointing to the front door. Lina puts her hand to her chest, her heart going a million beats per minute, and she thinks about how life in a cemetery should be a lot more dead. She pushes the door open, and Gloria trundles back a couple of inches, apologizing for startling her and saying she looked like her eyes were going to bug out of her head. Lina explains that Howard is not there and suggests they look for him at the visitors center, but Gloria says they only have 3 hours before the tour bus comes back and they want to be sure they see everything. Hank suggests they try the visitors center, but Gloria insists she does not know which building it is. Lina sighs and steps out onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind her, and agrees to help them. She walks down the stairs with the tourists following her, and Gloria immediately starts telling the story of how she and Hank met on a cruise after they had both lost their spouses. She talks about the mountains of shrimp and ice cream, and how Hank proposed before the ship had even docked. Lina is mortified by the oversharing and desperately looks around for an escape, either finding Howard or someplace to vomit. Gloria mentions that this is like a second honeymoon for them, and that Lina is a lucky duck for living in Italy. Lina thinks quack, quack, and they finally reach the visitors center. She practically runs for the entrance, but before she can reach for the handle, Howard steps out. He's wearing shorts and flip-flops, and he tells Lina he did not think she would be awake yet. Gloria introduces herself and Hank and mentions that she had requested a private tour, and Howard says Sonia would be happy to take them. He tells them to head inside, and Gloria notices that he sounds like a southerner and asks where he is from. He says South Carolina, and then introduces Lina as his daughter, pausing for just a nanosecond. Gloria comments on how different they look, noting that Lina has dark eyes and gorgeous hair and looks like a local, and that sometimes genes just skip a few generations. After the tourists go inside, Howard says he's sorry about that and that people do not usually go to the house. He asks about Lina's run, and she confirms she usually goes first thing. He offers to let her run through the cemetery or go out the front gates and explore, promising there is only one road so she should not get lost. Lina jogs out the front gates and crosses through the visitors' parking lot, picking up her pace until she is almost at a sprint. She usually outruns disturbing thoughts, but this one is pretty hard to shake. Why does she not look anything like Howard? It is probably just one of those things, but still. Should not they look at least a little bit alike? An enormous blue bus goes whooshing past her, and when she looks up, she gasps. She's running through a scene from an Olive Garden menu, with the road lined with trees and rustic houses painted in soft buttery colors, patchwork hills stretching out into the distance and honest-to-goodness vineyards behind half the houses. A small red car comes roaring up behind her, honking loudly, and the driver and passenger are two dark-haired men in their early 20s. The driver grins and starts honking again, and a guy in the backseat rolls down the window, shouting "Ciao, Bella" in Italian. Lina shakes her head and starts running again, but the driver pulls ahead and comes to a stop on her side of the road. She knows all about this breed of guy, and she crosses to the other side of the road, turns toward the cemetery, and tightens her shoelaces before taking off at a sprint. She outruns them easily, and by the time she gets back to the cemetery, Howard and Sonia are standing with their backs to the gate. Howard asks if she's okay, and she explains she got chased by a car full of guys. Howard's jaw tightens and he looks toward the road like he's considering charging out there with a baseball bat, which makes Lina feel a little better about his "she's so quiet" comment. Sonia suggests she run behind the cemetery instead, where there are no cars, and Lina changes the subject, asking where the Jorgensens are. Sonia grins and says they opted for the self-guided tour, pointing to where Gloria is marching hang past a row of headstones. Howard mentions that he wants to take Lina into Florence for dinner, and she reluctantly agrees. Sonia approaches Lina and asks if she can stop by her place to get something that belonged to her mother. Lina is uncomfortable and says she needs to take a shower, maybe some other time. Sonia's forehead creases and she says to let her know when she has a minute, but Lina breaks into a jog, feeling Sonia's gaze heavy on her back. She does not want to be rude, but she also does not want whatever it is Sonia has for her. People are always giving her things that belong to her mother, and she never knows what to do with them. They are like souvenirs of her previous life, and she does not need any more reminders that things have changed. Back in the house, she raids the fridge and finds yogurt and bread, devouring them, and then cleaning the kitchen like a crime scene. She does not know what to do with herself, and she cannot even use the internet because the connection is down. She decides to shower, but the water is freezing cold, and she jumps in and out as fast as she can. There's a knock on the door, and Sonia asks if she's all right, explaining that the hot water takes a while and that C stands for caldo, meaning hot. Lina dries off and gets dressed, and when she opens the door, Sonia is holding a potted violet plant and tells her she left the journal on her bed. Lina is horrified, hoping it is a new journal, but Sonia confirms it is an old one that belonged to her mother. Lina slumps against the doorway and asks why she has one of her mother's journals. Sonia explains that the package arrived at the cemetery back in September without a note, and she recognized the journal right away. She thought about giving it to Howard, but he never wanted to talk about Hadley, so she stalled. Then Howard told her about the plan for Lina to come stay, and she realized why she had sent the journal. Lina's questions start flying out, asking how long her mother lived at the cemetery and if she and Howard were together. Sonia explains that they seemed very in love, and that Howard adored her. Lina asks why her mother left, and Sonia says she does not really know what went wrong. Lina admits she knows nothing, not even that Howard was her father until after her mother died. Sonia says she assumed they had talked to her and that she really needs to talk to Howard. She hands Lina the violets, saying Howard asked her to pick them up because violets were her mother's favorite, but Lina is 99% sure her mother did not have any special feelings for violets. She takes the journal and promises to read it, and when Sonia leaves, she stares at her bedroom door, feeling panic creeping in. She tells herself she can do this and finally starts making her way down the hall, but at the last minute she veers toward the stairs, the violets teetering dangerously. She fills a dish with water and sets the pot inside, then sits down at the kitchen table and watches them, knowing she's stalling but unable to help herself. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 4. The chapter opens with Lina reflecting on her mother's love of journaling. It was something her mother had always been passionate about, a constant in her life alongside hot yoga, food trucks, terrible reality TV shows, and a brief obsession with homemade beauty products that left them covered in coconut oil and mashed avocado for a month. A couple of times a year, her mother would splurge on a thick artist notebook from their favorite bookstore in downtown Seattle and spend months filling it with her life, photographs, diary entries, grocery lists, ideas for photo shoots, and even old ketchup packets. The strange part was that she let other people read them, and even stranger, people loved to read them because they were creative and hilarious and made you feel like you had just taken a trip through Wonderland. Now, Lina walks into her bedroom and stands at the foot of her bed, staring at the journal Sonia left right in the center of her pillow, weighing it down like a pile of bricks. She tells herself she's ready, even though she's definitely not, and walks over to pick it up. The cover is made of soft leather with a big gold fleur-de-lis in its center, and it looks nothing like her mother's journals back home. She takes a deep breath and cracks open the cover, half expecting confetti to shoot out at her, but all that happens is a bunch of brochures and ticket stubs fall out onto the floor and she gets a whiff of something musty. She picks up all the papers and starts flipping through the pages, ignoring the writing and focusing on the photographs. There is her mother standing in front of an old church with her camera slung over her shoulder, grinning over a gigantic bowl of pasta, and then Howard. Lina practically drops the book. It is definitely him. Younger and longer-haired, with what looks like a tattoo on his upper arm. He and her mother are sitting on stone steps, and her mother has short hair and old Hollywood lipstick and this I have been swept off my feet kind of look. Lina sits down on her bed with a thud, wondering why her mother had not just told her the story herself. Did she think her journal would do a better job? Was she worried Lina was not ready to hear it? She shoves the journal in her nightstand drawer and slams it shut, deciding she is not ready either. Not yet. A car alarm starts blaring somewhere in the cemetery, and Lina rolls over to look at the clock, seeing it is 3 p.m. She has so much time to kill, it is ridiculous. She gets out of bed and makes a half-hearted attempt at organizing her things, putting a couple of pictures of her mother and her into the empty frames in her room, then laces up her shoes and heads for the front porch. She does not have a plan, so she just sits on the porch swing and rocks for a while, taking in the view of the memorial and the statue of an angel holding olive branches. 2 men stand taking pictures in front of it, and one of them waves at her, so she waves back and jumps up, heading for the back fence. She really does not have it in her to handle another Jorgensen situation. The back gate is easy to find, and as she heads out, she realizes Sonia was not kidding. The hill behind the cemetery is steep. She forces herself to keep running until she reaches the top, her legs and lungs on fire, and then she hears a thud-thud noise. She's not alone. There's a boy playing with a soccer ball, about her age or a little older, with dark hair that is at least 3 months overdue for a haircut. He's wearing shorts and a soccer jersey and juggling the ball back and forth from knee to knee, singing quietly in Italian to whatever is playing on his headphones. Lina hesitates, wondering if she can sneak away without him noticing. But he looks up and they make eye contact. She nods at him and walks quickly along the path, like she's late to a meeting or something, and he pulls off his headphones, asking in English if she's lost. Lina stops, surprised by his American accent, and asks if he speaks English. He says just a little bit, with an exaggerated Italian accent, and she asks if he's American. He says sort of, explaining that his mother is American, but he has lived in Italy most of his life. Lina tells him she's from Seattle but is living here for the summer, and she points to the cemetery. He raises an eyebrow and says spooky, but Lina defends the place, saying it is more of a memorial and all the graves are from World War II, so it is not like there are burials going on. He puts his headphones back on, and Lina says great to meet him and guess she will see him around. He says he is Lorenzo, and Lina tries to repeat his name but cannot roll the R correctly. He says that is okay. He goes by Ren, and he grins, or mysterious Italian-American that works too. Lina apologizes, and he asks if she goes by Carolina or if she has a nickname too. Lina is startled because no one but her mother or teachers ever call her by her full name, and she asks how he knows her name. He explains that he goes to AISF, the American International School of Florence, and Howard came in to ask about enrollment, so word spread. Ren says their classes are really small. There were only 18 of them last year, so new students are a big deal, and they have been talking about her since January. One guy, Marco, even claimed her as his biology partner and bombed his final project trying to blame it on her. Lina is weirded out by this, and Ren comments that she does not look anything like he thought she would, that she's really short and looks Italian. Lina asks how he knew to speak to her in English, and he points out her clothes, bright colors and running shoes, saying, "Give it a month or 2 and she will totally get it. That a lot of people here will not go anywhere unless they are wearing something Gucci." Lina asks if he's wearing Gucci, and he says soccer clothes are exempt and about as Italian as they get. He asks if she wants to meet his mother, who is basically starving for American company, and Lina hesitates but eventually agrees, not wanting to face the journal or Howard. They walk to his house and Wren explains that his family lives in a gingerbread house built by an eccentric man from upstate New York who made a fortune on his grandmother's fudge recipe and called himself the Candy Baron. The house is absurdly whimsical, with a stone exterior, thatched roof with gingerbread trim, candy-colored flowers, lemon trees and cobalt blue pots, and a giant candy cane carved into the front door. Lina is delighted by the absurdity of it all. Inside, the house is a librarian's nightmare, with floor-to-ceiling bookcases packed with thousands of books. Wren leads Lina to his mother's studio, where Odette is napping on a daybed with yellow paint streaked through her hair. Wren wakes her by whispering he just saw Bono in Tavernuse, and her eyes snap open immediately. Odette is warm and welcoming, thrilled to meet another American, and she comments on how Wren has been having the most boring summer of his life. She gives Lina cookies and asks about her mother, and Lina learns that Odette is a ceramic artist who paints scenes of Tuscany. Wren's younger sister, Gabriella, comes in wearing only ruffled underpants and black dress shoes, announcing that she pooped, and she asks if Lina is Wren's girlfriend. Lina says no, and Gabriella tells her she looks like a principessa, maybe like Rapunzel because of her crazy hairs. Gabriella asks if Lina wants to see her criceto, which means hamster, and Lina agrees, but Wren warns her that going into Gabriella's room is like entering a time warp where she will end up playing Barbies for 5 hours. Wren asks Lina if she wants to go to a party with him tomorrow, and Lina hesitates but agrees to ask Howard. He gives her his phone number by writing it on her hand, and Lina feels a flutter of excitement as she leaves the house. She returns to the cemetery and gets ready to go to Florence with Howard. The drive takes about 30 minutes, and when they arrive, Howard parks with impressive precision. Lina is captivated by the city, with its cobblestone streets, pastel buildings, green shutters, and laundry hanging between buildings. Howard leads her to the Duomo, and Lina is awestruck by the massive cathedral with its intricate carvings of pink, green, and white marble. Howard explains that it is called the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, but everyone just calls it the Duomo, and the dome was the largest in the world until modern technology. He points out the baptistery and the gates of paradise, and Lina is overwhelmed by the beauty and history of the city. They have dinner at a pizzeria, and Lina learns that Howard speaks Italian fluently. He tells her about his childhood in Due West, South Carolina, and the stories her mother told him, including the one about him rearranging traffic barricades and the time they got a free meal in Rome because the restaurant owner thought he was a famous basketball player. Howard comments on how much Lina looks like her mother, and he reaches out to touch her ring, the gold band her mother always wore. He asks if she knows he gave it to her, and Lina is stunned, pulling her hand away. There's a long, awkward silence, and then Howard asks if she has a boyfriend back home. Lina says no, and Howard tells her she has plenty of time to break hearts when she's older. He brings up the international school and offers to introduce her to a social worker friend if she needs someone to talk to. Lina shuts down the conversation, and after an awkward dinner, Howard reveals that he did not know about her until her mother got sick and reached out to him. Lina is shocked by this revelation and runs to the bathroom, crying. She had never even considered that possibility, and she is overwhelmed by the realization that her mother kept them apart for 16 years. When she finally comes out, Howard is still sitting at the table with his shoulders slumped, and Lina watches him, anger settling over her like a fine dusting of Parmesan cheese. She wonders why they are together now, when her mother kept them apart for so long. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 5. The chapter opens with Lina unable to sleep that night, tossing and turning as she processes everything Howard told her at dinner. The clock on her bedroom wall makes an irritating tick-tick-tick noise that she had not noticed the night before, and she pulls a pillow over her head to drown it out, but that is suffocating. A breeze is blowing through her open window, and her violets keep swaying like deadheads at a concert. Finally, she gives up on sleep and switches on her lamp, taking the ring off her finger and studying it in the light. Even though her mother had not seen Howard in more than 16 years, she had worn the ring he gave her every single day. Lina wonders why, if they were really in love like Sonia said, what had torn them apart. Before she loses her nerve, she opens her nightstand drawer and feels for the journal. She lifts the front cover and reads the words sprawled across the inside cover in thick black marker. I made the wrong choice. A chill moves down her spine. Was this a message to her? A kind of precursor to whatever she's about to read? She musters up her courage and turns to the front page, deciding it is now or never. The first entry is dated May 22nd, and Lina's mother describes the moment she decided not to go to nursing school and instead pursue photography in Florence. She writes about having a complete panic attack after meeting with the admissions officers at the University of Washington. But instead of telling her parents or running back into the office, she buys herself a journal. She writes about how scary the moment is, but also how it is the moment her real life begins. She's officially no longer a future nursing student, and in just 3 weeks she will be packing her things and boarding a plane for Florence, Italy, to study photography at the Fine Arts Academy of Florence. She just has to figure out how to break the news to her parents, and most of her ideas involve placing an anonymous call from Antarctica. The next entry is dated May 23rd, and Lina's mother describes telling her parents about her decision. Her mother immediately jumps to the conclusion that she's pregnant, and then when she denies it, assumes she is gay. Lina's mother tries to explain that she is not going to nursing school and has been accepted to an art school in Florence, but her parents are completely stunned and then furious. Her mother lectures her about throwing away her life and wasting her scholarship and their hard-earned money for 6 frivolous months in a country where the women do not even shave their armpits. Lina's mother explains that she will pay for the entire thing herself and thanks them for their contributions to her education, but after the confrontation she goes up to her room and bawls her eyes out because she's so scared. But she knows she has no choice, because the second she had that acceptance letter in her hand, she knew she wanted it more than she had ever wanted anything. Lina sets the journal down, a straight-up monsoon happening in the general vicinity of her face, the words running together in a big blurry mess. This is why she cannot read her mother's journals. They make her feel like she's overhearing her talking on the phone to a friend, and then when she looks up from the page and she's not there, the grief is overwhelming. She rubs her eyes ferociously, reminding herself that her mother sent her this journal for a reason and she has to find out what it is. She continues reading, and the next entry is dated June 13th. Describing her mother's departure for Italy on what feels like a bad omen because she is leaving on the 13th. Then there is an entry from June 20th, describing her first week in Florence. Her mother is ecstatic, saying the school is exactly what she pictured, tiny and cluttered and overflowing with talent. Her apartment is above a noisy bakery, and her mattress might be made of cardboard, but she does not care because the world's most gorgeous city is right outside her window. Her roommate is a fashion photography student from northern Italy named Francesca, who wears all black, switches effortlessly between Italian, French, and English, and has been chain-smoking out their window since the moment she arrived. Lina's mother adores her. The next entry is dated June 23rd, describing her first free day in Italy. Francesca takes her on a tour of Florence, explaining that Florence is the birthplace of the Renaissance and that 1/3 of the population died in the bubonic plague in the 1300s, leading to a cultural rebirth and an explosion of artistic work. She takes Lina's mother to the Duomo, and they climb 463 steep stone stairs to the top. When they finally reach the top, Lina's mother cannot stop taking pictures. Florence spreads out like an orange-tinted maze, and the sky is the most perfect shade of blue. Lina's mother reaches her arms out wide, feeling the wind and this new feeling of freedom. She gives Francesca a giant hug, and Francesca just peels her off and tells her they need to go shopping because she has never seen a sadder pair of jeans. Lina whispers no way to herself, realizing what are the chances that she would read this entry on the day she saw the Duomo for the first time. She runs her fingers over the words, imagining her 20-something-year-old mother running to keep up with tyrannical, springy Francesca. Was this part of the reason her mother sent her journal, so they could experience Florence together? She marks her place and switches off the light, her chest heavy. Hearing her mother's voice is the emotional equivalent of a damaged ship taking on water, but it feels good too. Her mother had loved Florence, and maybe reading her journal will be like seeing it with her. She will just have to take it in small doses. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on the journal and realizing that her mother's life in Italy was more complicated and more passionate than she ever knew, and she's determined to uncover all of it, no matter how painful it might be. She falls asleep clutching the journal, feeling closer to her mother than she has in months. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 6. The chapter opens with Lina waking up the next morning feeling determined to tell Addie about the journal. She tumbles down the stairs without even changing out of her pajamas, eager to share what she has discovered. Ren had been completely wrong about the jet lag thing because once she'd finished reading the diary entry, she had tucked the journal under the covers with her and slept a solid 13 hours. She feels like a well-rested hummingbird, full of energy and ready to tackle the day. Right before she escaped up to her room the night before, Howard had told her he would leave his cell phone out for her, and she's ridiculously grateful that she does not have to ask him for it. The drive home from dinner the previous night had been incredibly awkward, and she really does not want to have another uncomfortable conversation with him. The less interacting, the better. Back in her room, she closes the door and powers up the phone, trying to remember the country code and area code. After 3 tries, the phone finally starts ringing and Ian answers. He's distracted by a video game blaring in the background, and Lina has to remind him who she is. He asks where she is again, and Lina says Italy, but he does not seem to care. She asks if Addie is there, and Ian says he does not know where she is. It is like 2 in the morning there, and she probably stayed over at someone's house. He promises to tell her she called, but Lina knows Ian's track record means her message has a less than 0 chance of ever getting to Addie. Lina is disappointed and frustrated, and she really needs to talk to her best friend about everything, the journal, what Howard told her, and all of it. She paces around her bedroom like her grandmother's OCD cat, not feeling ready to go back to the journal, but also not able to just sit around thinking. She quickly changes into her running clothes and goes outside. Howard is sitting on the porch swing with a stack of papers on his lap and dark circles under his eyes, and Lina is startled by his presence. He asks how she slept, and she says fine. She just woke up, propping her foot up on the banister and giving her shoelaces total concentration. Howard comments on how he does not think he saw the morning side of a sunrise until his late 20s, and then he stumbles into the conversation, asking how she's feeling about what they talked about last night. Lina quickly says she's not upset, and Howard says he would really like to talk to her more about her mother and him, that there are some things she did not tell her that he wants to explain. Lina yanks her foot off the banister like a rocket and says maybe another time. She would really like to start her run. She wants to hear her mother's side first. Howard hesitates but agrees, saying they will take it at her pace, just tell him when she's ready. Lina hurries down the steps, but Howard calls after her, saying she got a phone call at the visitor center that morning. She whips around, hoping it is Addie, but Howard says it was a local call from a guy named Red or Rem, an American who said he met her yesterday while she was out running. A handful of confetti rains down on Lina as she realizes it is Ren. She explains that his name is Ren, short for Lorenzo, and Howard asks about the party Ren mentioned. Lina says maybe, and Howard's forehead creases with concern. He asks who Ren is, and Lina explains he lives nearby. His mom is American, and he goes to the international school. Howard's face lights up, but then he remembers grilling Ren on the phone because he thought he was one of the guys who chased her. He apologizes and says he definitely owes Ren an apology. He asks if Lina knows Ren's last name, and she says Ferrari or something. They live in a house that looks like gingerbread. Howard laughs and says the Ferraras, and he comments on how lucky it is that she ran into him. He says Ren wanted him to tell her that he cannot make it until 8:30, and he will make sure dinner is ready before then, so she has plenty of time to eat. He also says they should look into getting her a cell phone so her friends will not have to call at the visitors center. Lina says that would be overkill since she only knows one person, but Howard says after tonight she will know more, and she can just give people his number so they do not have to call the cemetery line. He also shares the good news that their internet connection is finally sorted out, so FaceTime should work great. Lina goes for her run, and later that evening she FaceTimes Addie to get her opinion on what to wear to the party. Addie is groggy but enthusiastic, telling Lina she looks great in her black and white skirt and insisting she will thank her later. Lina admits she does not like going to parties, that she used to, but then her mother got sick and no one knew what to say to her anymore. Addie gently points out that some of that is in Lina's head, that people just do not want to say the wrong thing, and she has to admit she shuts people down a lot. Lina is defensive, but Addie reminds her about Jake Harrison, a hot senior lacrosse player who tried to ask her out for 2 months but she kept avoiding him. Lina argues she could barely go 30 minutes without talking about her mother and crying, and Addie says she thinks Lina is ready now. She predicts that tonight Lina will meet and fall in love with the hottest boy in Italy. Lina puts on her black and white skirt and Howard calls her down for dinner. She's too nervous to eat, which is a first for her. Ren arrives on his scooter, and Howard introduces himself, apologizing for the mix-up on the phone. Ren says he's just glad to know Howard is not going to come after him with a chainsaw anymore. Lina is ready to go, and Howard eyes Ren's scooter with concern, asking if he has been driving it for a while and if he has an extra helmet. Ren assures him he has been driving since he was 14 and is a really safe driver, and he has an extra helmet. Howard gives his permission, telling Ren to drive carefully and to stay close to Lina because she's nervous. Lina asks what they were saying in Italian, and Ren says, "Man talk." She climbs onto the back of the scooter, and they zip off into the night. Ren drives them to Elena's house, a massive villa that looks like a palace with towers and a large arched doorway. Lina is overwhelmed by the opulence, and Ren explains that Elena's mom is a descendant of the Medici, a really powerful Florentine family that basically funded the Renaissance. Elena greets them warmly, and when she learns Lina is Carolina, she practically shrieks with excitement. She drags Lina inside, and the group of teenagers at the party immediately swarms her, all of them excited to meet the mysterious new girl. Lina is overwhelmed but also thrilled by the attention. She meets Marco, the boy who claimed her as his biology partner, and he gives her an enthusiastic hug. Then she meets Mimi, a stunningly beautiful girl with white blonde hair who is clearly Ren's girlfriend. Ren's demeanor changes when Mimi appears, and Lina feels a pang of jealousy that she tries to ignore. Thomas, a tall, thin, handsome boy with a British accent, approaches her, and she is immediately smitten. He flirts with her, and they spend the rest of the party talking and getting to know each other. Lina learns that Thomas has 2 older sisters and knows way too much about dirty dancing. They share a moment of connection, and Lina feels like she's finally experiencing normal teenage life. As the night winds down, Ren announces it is time to go, but Lina does not want to leave. She reluctantly follows him, but not before Thomas gets her phone number. On the ride home, Lina reflects on the party, feeling alive and happy for the first time in months. She knows she's falling for Thomas, and she cannot wait to see him again. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a sense of hope and excitement about her new life in Italy. Love and Gelato, by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 7. The chapter opens with Lina arriving back at the cemetery, soaking wet from the pool and shivering uncontrollably. Ren had to drive her home drenched because she had jumped into the pool at the party after being dared by the other guests. She's cold and miserable, and she knows she's also over an hour late, which means Howard is probably furious. Ren is terrified of facing Howard, and he whispers to Lina that he is going to get killed. Lina assures him Howard is not going to kill him, but she is not entirely sure about that either. They pull up to the house, and Howard is waiting on the porch, his enormous silhouette illuminated against the light. Lina waddles up to the door, her jeans sticking to her legs, and apologizes for being late. Howard squints at her and asks if her hair is wet, and she explains they made her walk the plank as an initiation ritual. A faint smile glimmers under his stern look, and he asks if tonight was a success. Lina says yes, and Howard says he's glad to hear it. He looks over her head and says goodnight to Ren, who takes off in a spray of gravel. Lina follows Howard inside, and she is surprised to find Sonia and 4 other people sitting on the couches, wine glasses in hand with jazz music playing in the background. Everyone looks a little tipsy, and Lina realizes Howard was having a party of his own. Sonia introduces Lina to the group, and an older woman in cat-eyed glasses purrs that she is a beauty. Howard grins and says, "Isn't she?" and one of the men says they're old friends of Howard's and know him from his wild stallion days. Howard quickly cuts him off, telling Lina she probably wants to go upstairs and get changed because she's freezing. As Lina climbs the stairs, she overhears one of the guests ask if she's the photographer's daughter, and Howard confirms that she is. There's a moment of silence, and Lina waits for him to clarify that she's also his daughter, but he never does. Someone changes the subject, and Lina is left wondering what that was about. Lina FaceTimes Addie as soon as she is in dry clothes, eager to tell her all about the party. Addie is thrilled and immediately asks if Lina met the hottest of hot Italian guys. Lina says she did, but he is not Italian, he is British. Addie squeals with excitement and immediately starts stalking Thomas online, finding his profile and confirming that he is incredibly good-looking. She insists Lina has to have a summer fling with him, but Lina is hesitant, knowing that Ren is off the table because of Mimi. Addie tells Lina she has to stay in Italy for at least a little while, and Lina says they will see. After they hang up, Lina decides to read more of the journal, and the next entry is dated July 2nd. Her mother describes Florence as absolutely magical, with its cobblestones, old buildings and bridges, but also gritty and real. She spends a lot of time photographing things that seem uniquely Italian, like laundry hanging in alleyways and red geraniums planted in old tomato sauce cans, but mostly she tries to capture the people because Italians are so expressive. She watches the sunset at Ponte Vecchio and realizes she has finally found the place that feels right to her, and she cannot believe she had to come halfway across the world to find it. The next entry is dated July 9th, and Lina's mother introduces the cast of characters in her life in Florence. There is Howard, the perfect Southern gentleman and Southern giant, handsome and kind, and the sort of guy who will go marching into battle for you. There is Finn, an Ernest Hemingway wannabe from Martha's Vineyard, Adrienne, a French woman who is probably the prettiest person her mother has ever seen, and Simone and Alessio, who are always together and constantly getting into fistfights. And then there is her mother, an American wannabe photographer who has been giddy since the moment her plane touched down in Florence. The next entry is dated July 20th, and Lina's mother writes about trying to learn Italian and signing up for a beginner Italian class that Howard and Finn are also in. The next entry is dated August 23rd, and Lina's mother writes that she has fallen in love. She says she would fall for X anywhere, and she and X have to keep their relationship completely secret, which makes him all the more appealing. She has given him a new name, X, in case anyone reads her journal. Lina is shocked by the revelation, and she realizes that Howard is not the secret lover her mother was talking about. She wonders who X is and why her mother had to keep their relationship a secret. Lina reads on, and the next entry is dated September 9th, where Lina's mother describes the beginning of her relationship with X. He was one of the very first people she met when she arrived in Florence, and he gave one of the semester's opening lectures. He is obviously talented and good-looking, but there is also something else, a depth to him that makes her want to figure him out. They spend a lot of time together, in and out of class, but they are never alone, and she keeps catching him staring at her during class. Finally, at a club called Space, she sees him leaning against the wall alone, and before she can say anything, he reaches out and grabs her wrist, saying her name in a way that makes her realize she has not been imagining things. The next entry is dated September 15th, where Lina's mother describes meeting X at the Boboli Gardens, a 16th century park in the middle of the city. They take their cameras and capture everything they want to, and then they sit down under a tree and talk. He knows so much about art, history, and literature, and when the grounds close, he pulls her back down and they kiss until a guard makes them leave. The next entry is dated September the 20th, where Lina's mother writes that the only hard part about being in love with X is not telling anyone about it. She knows the school would not be okay with them dating, but it is hard to keep something this big a secret. She's pretty bad at secret keeping, and everyone seems to know she's in love. She tells Francesca she's out working on night photography, but Francesca just rolls her eyes and says she knows all about night photography. The next entry is dated October 9th, where Lina's mother describes X taking her to a secret bakery in Florence where commercial bakers work through the night to produce pastries for restaurants and illegally sell them to insiders. They buy a chocolate-filled cornetta, a glazed croissant, and 2 stuffed cannoli, and they sit on a curb and devour everything. Lina is captivated by the story, and she is also hungry, practically salivating over the description of the pastries. She puts the journal down, her mind reeling with questions about who X is and what happened between him and her mother. She looks out the window and sees a blur of movement, a white figure moving toward the house. She leans out the window and realizes it is Howard on a longboard, gliding through the cemetery in the middle of the night like it is something he does all the time. Lina is stunned and realizes she has to figure this guy out. The chapter ends with Lina feeling more confused and intrigued than ever, determined to uncover the secrets of her mother's past and understand the mysterious man she has come to live with. Love and Gelato, by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 8. The chapter opens with Lina waking up the next morning to Howard knocking on her open bedroom door, telling her there is a phone call for her. She shoves the journal under the bed, having been rereading the entries from the night before and stalling because she wants to prolong the happy part of the story. Howard tells her it is Ren on the phone, and he says he has to get her own phone, so she should just hang on to his cell phone for now. Lina takes the phone, and Howard tells her to please tell Ren that he does not need to be afraid of him, that Ren just set a world record for using Sir the most times in a single conversation. Lina smiles and says she can try, but Howard really messed with him that first time they talked. Howard admits he had good reason, and then he says he will see her later. He should be off work around 5. Lina puts the phone to her ear and says hi to Ren, watching Howard walk down the stairs. She cannot believe that Howard made out with her mother in a public park, and she wonders what had been so special about the way he said her name that first time they connected at Space. Ren asks if she's there, and Lina says yes, she's kind of distracted. She closes her bedroom door and sits on her bed, and Ren asks if Howard was mad. Lina says no, he was having a party, and she does not think he even noticed they were late. Ren says he's lucky, and he asks if she has gone running yet. Lina says she was just about to, and Ren offers to come with her, saying he is already on his way. Lina changes and runs out to meet him at the cemetery gates. Ren is wearing a bright orange t-shirt and jogging in place, his hair in his eyes as usual. Lina comments on how his shirt is not American looking, and Ren says it is not American looking when it is on an Italian. They start running, and Ren tells Lina that he found a bunch of articles online about her mother, that she won a Lens Culture award and was a big deal. Lina confirms that the Lens Culture jump-started her mother's career, and that is when she started doing photography full-time. Ren comments on one of her mother's photographs called Erased, and Lina laughs because he's doing a pretty good impression of the woman in the picture. He also saw the self-portraits her mother did while she was sick, and Lina admits she does not really like looking at those. Ren says that is understandable. The road dips and Lina speeds up, and Ren does too. Lina asks if he is hanging out with his friends again soon, and Ren asks if she means Thomas. Lina flushes and says and others, and Ren jokes that she really wants to see Marco again. Lina laughs and says maybe, and Ren asks if Thomas did not get her number. Lina points out she does not even have a number, and Ren says he also called her on her dad's cell phone, even though it was terrifying. Lina tells him he has got to get over that first bad conversation with Howard, and Ren says it is not that easy, that people are just not that tall here and he probably gets stared at everywhere he goes. Lina laughs, and Ren asks if she wants to go into town with him tonight to get ice cream or just walk around. Lina asks if Swedish Model would be okay with that, and Ren says he thinks it will be alright. When Ren arrives to pick Lina up, she and Howard are finishing dinner. Howard has made a big bowl of pasta with fresh tomatoes and mozzarella, and Lina has spent the whole meal staring at him like a complete weirdo, trying to reconcile the perfect Southern gentleman from her mother's journal with the man sitting in front of her. Howard asks if everything is alright, and Lina says she was just thinking. Since they had the talk about not talking about her mother, things have been feeling a little better, and Howard is actually pretty easy to be around. He asks what she thinks about sightseeing tomorrow, and Lina says, okay. Ren pokes his head into the kitchen, and Lina says, speak of the devil. Ren apologizes for being late, and when he sees Howard, he startles and says he probably should have knocked, sir. Howard smiles and asks if Ren would like some dinner, but Ren says he already ate. Howard takes his plate into the kitchen, and Ren sits down next to Lina, grabbing a noodle from her plate. Lina tells him to come upstairs with her for a second because there is something she wants to see. She leads him to her bedroom, and Ren comments on how bare it is, asking if she's going to be here a while. Lina says just for the summer, and hopefully it will be less. She gets the journal from under the bed and starts flipping through the pages, asking if he knows a place called Ponte Vecchio. Ren laughs and says Ponte Vecchio, and he is shocked that she has never been there. He tells her to get dressed. They're leaving now. They ride Ren's scooter into Florence, and when they arrive at Ponte Vecchio, Lina is utterly captivated. The bridge is lit up in the darkness, with 3 stone arches rising gracefully out of the water and a row of colorful buildings lining its length. Ren leads her down to a ledge just below the bridge, and they sit there together, taking in the view. Lina tells Ren about the time her mother and she drove to a poppy reserve in California, and how magical it was just like this. She gets emotional, and Ren is quiet, letting her have her moment. He asks about the journal, and Lina explains that her mother was living in Florence when she got pregnant with her, and the journal is all about her time in Italy. She is trying to figure out what happened between Howard and her mother. Ren asks what she means, and Lina explains the whole complicated story. Her mother met Howard when she was in school, and then when she got pregnant, she left Italy and never told him about Lina. Once she got sick, she started talking about Howard a lot and made Lina promise to come live with him. But she never told her what went wrong between them. Ren is stunned, and he says Lina is even stranger than he is. Lina asks what makes him different, and Ren explains that he is sort of American and sort of Italian, and he feels too American in Italy and too Italian in the States. He is also older than everyone in his grade, because his family moved to Texas for a couple of years, and then when they moved back, he had to be held back a year to catch up on his Italian. Ren asks if she's really only staying for the summer, and Lina says yes. The circumstances are obviously pretty weird and she barely knows Howard. Ren says maybe she will get to know him, and he kind of likes him. Lina admits it seems bizarre that if her mother had not gotten sick, she probably still would not know anything about Howard. Ren asks what she has been reading about in the journal, and Lina tells him about the secret relationship with X, and how her mother had to keep it a secret because he was a teacher at the school. Ren suggests that secret romances have a shelf life, but Lina is not convinced because Sonia told her her mother lived with Howard at the cemetery for a while, so that was not exactly secretive. She also says Sonia told her that one day her mother just left without saying goodbye. Ren says something must have happened, something big, like her mother getting pregnant. Lina admits that is a big deal. Ren asks what other places her mother wrote about, and Lina mentions space, the club, and the Duomo, and a secret bakery. Ren has never heard of the secret bakery, but he's intrigued. His phone starts ringing, and he silences it twice. Lina asks who it is, and Ren says no one, but she sees Mimi's name on the screen. He asks if she wants to get a gelato, and Lina agrees. They go to a gelateria, and Lina tries her first Italian gelato, which is the most delicious thing she has ever tasted. She has to stop after 4 scoops, and she is completely transformed by the experience. When she gets back to the cemetery, Howard is watching an old James Bond movie, but Lina is too distracted to watch. She goes up to her room and reads more of the journal. Her mother writes about a statue called The Rape of the Sabine Women, and how X told her the story of the Sabine women being kidnapped by the Romans. He told her he loved her that night, and she was overjoyed. But then things got complicated, and her mother started to feel like the secrecy was wearing on her. She was worried about money and her parents' expectations, and she started to feel like X was overly cautious about keeping their relationship secret. Lina can see the first signs of trouble in the entries, and she feels a sense of dread about what is coming next. She wonders if Howard was the wrong choice, or if X was, and she's determined to find out. The chapter ends with Lina feeling more entangled in her mother's past than ever, the journal revealing a story of love, secrecy, and heartbreak that is just beginning to unfold. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 9. The chapter opens with Lina waking up the next morning and immediately calling Ren to tell him about her brilliant idea. She has waited until a socially acceptable hour, but she has still had to practically drag Ren out of his bed, and now they are sitting on his front porch, where he looks only about 30% awake. He's wearing black sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, and like usual, he has to keep shaking his hair out of his face. Lina notices how cute he looks, even with bedhead, and she quickly looks away when he catches her staring. She tells him she needs his help with one last thing, and Ren groans, asking if it can wait until he takes a nap. Lina refuses, asking why he's so tired, and Ren admits he was on the phone with Mimi until 3 in the morning. The sun suddenly seems way too bright, and Lina asks if Mimi was really mad about what she said at Space. Ren says, yeah, it was pretty ugly, but he does not want to talk about that and asks what she needs help with. Lina asks if he can give her a ride to FAAF, her mother's old school. She called them that morning and learned they moved to a new location a few years ago, but she wants to go see if she can get any info on Francesca, her mother's old roommate. Ren is confused, asking why she wants to track down X, and Lina explains that her mother had this whole life she did not know about, and she wants to know what was so great about X that she could not get over him and had to break Howard's heart. Ren points out that is still just a theory, but Lina is insistent, saying she just wants to know who the mysterious X is and that he was so awful when he broke up with her that it totally destroyed her. She thinks it will help her understand it all better. Ren hesitates but eventually agrees to help her. They drive to the school, and after getting lost several times and getting conflicting directions from locals, they finally find the building. Ren buzzes the intercom, and a woman's voice answers in Italian. He explains they have an appointment, and the woman tells them to come to the 3rd floor. They race each other up the stairs, and they burst into a large, well-lit reception area. A woman in a tight lavender dress stands up from behind her desk and asks if they called about meeting with their admissions officer. Lina explains that she is actually hoping to ask about one of her past students, her mother, who was a student there about 17 years ago. The woman says she cannot give out personal information, and Lina is frustrated. Ren asks if Signora Petruccione could help them, and the woman looks surprised. Lina explains that he was the director when her mother was attending, and the woman stares at them for a moment before skulking out of the room. She returns with an energetic-looking old man with wiry white hair, dressed stylishly in a suit and tie. When he sees Lina, he does a double take and exclaims that it is not possible. He asks if she is Hadley's daughter, and Lina confirms it. He's thrilled to meet her and invites them into his office. Lina explains that she's trying to learn about her mother's time at school and wants to get in touch with one of her old friends, Francesca Bernardi. Petruccione remembers Francesca well, saying she's another one who made quite a name for herself and had a spread in Vogue Italia last spring. He has his assistant check the alumni records and gives Lina Francesca's full name and contact information. Lina is grateful and asks Petruccione what her mother was like when she was here. He describes her as an exclamation mark in human form, full of talent and driven, and says all the students liked her. He tells a funny story about how she took a photograph of Ponte Vecchio for an assignment after he warned the class against it, and he loved it so much he did not even realize what it was until she told him. Ren nudges Lina and mouths X, reminding her to ask about him. Lina takes a deep breath and asks Petruccione if there was a male faculty member or teacher who resigned partway through her mother's second semester. Petruccione suddenly looks disgusted and says no. He does not remember. Lina presses, saying he might not have been around for long and ended up taking another job in Rome, but Petruccione cuts her off, saying they have had a lot of faculty come and go and he does not remember. His voice is still kind but final, and Lina knows he is not going to talk about X. They leave the office, and the receptionist is suddenly much friendlier, saying it was an honor meeting her. As soon as they are outside, Ren comments on how Petruccione definitely knew who they were talking about, and Lina agrees. She calls Francesca's number, and a man answers in rapid Italian. Lina asks for Francesca, and the man tisks and hangs up. Lina tries again, and this time a woman with a low, smoky voice answers. Lina introduces herself as Hadley Emerson's daughter, and Francesca is surprised. Lina asks if she can answer some questions about her mother's life in Florence, and Francesca says she would be happy to, but she has not been in touch with Hadley in ages. Lina hesitates and then breaks the news that her mother died a little over 6 months ago. Francesca gasps and is devastated, saying her mother was too young and that after she finished her program she dropped off the side of the world and none of them were able to get in touch with her. Lina asks if she remembers if her mother was dating anyone, and Francesca says yes, that her mother's love life was like a romance novel, that she was in love, and half of Florence was in love with her. She says there was a professor, Matteo Rossi, who was causing a mess and ruining things. Lina asks for his last name, and Francesca confirms it is Rossi. She says Matteo was a waste of time for everyone, especially Lina's mother, and that he was charming and handsome but controlling. She says it was quite the scandal when he was fired. Lina asks if she knows where Matteo is these days, and Francesca says she has no idea and she likes it best that way. She asks how old Lina is, and Lina says 16. Francesca does the math and realizes when Lina was born, and she starts to ask if Lina is calling because of that, but Lina quickly says she has to go and hangs up. She tells Ren that they have Matteo's name and they are going to find him. They rush to an internet cafe to search for him online. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 10. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren running to the nearest internet cafe, which turns out to be a disappointment. She had been expecting trendy cappuccinos or giant sugar-dusted muffins, but all the cafe consists of these ancient desktop computers and a group of angry people waiting in line to delete their junk mail. Ren asks if she wants to just go home and use his computer, but Lina is determined to find Matteo right away. Her phone chimes with a text from Thomas asking if she wants to go to a party with him tomorrow night for a girl who graduated last year, with a band, bar, and fireworks. Lina braces herself for a stampede of stomach butterflies, but nothing happens. She looks at Ren furtively, wondering why he looks so good to her today. He asks who it is, and Lina says no one. Ren questions whether it is a good idea to track down Matteo, and Petruccione obviously did not want to talk about him, and Francesca was not a fan either, suggesting he might be a jerk. Lina admits he was definitely a jerk, but she still wants to meet him because he was a huge deal in her mother's life, and she must have wanted her to know about him. She just feels like finding him is a big part of figuring all this out. Ren is still unconvinced but agrees to help, pointing out that Matteo Rossi is a pretty common name, like looking for Steve Smith in the States. Lina insists they will find him, and she points out how lucky they have been already, finding the school and getting Francesca to reveal his name. A woman stands up from a computer, and Lina sprints over to it, Ren at her heels, and they both squish into the chair. Ren searches in Italian and Lina pulls out the journal to find keywords. They search for Matteo Rossi Fine Arts Academy of Florence and Matteo Rossi Photographer Rome, and after scrolling through pages of results, they finally find an ad in English for a photography workshop in Rome. Ren clicks on the link, and the website loads painfully slowly, but eventually, they get to a bio page. A black and white headshot of Matteo loads, and Lina leans in to take a look, and then she stops breathing. The room suddenly feels hot, itchy, and asphyxiating, like one of the wool sweaters her great-aunt used to send her every Christmas. Her hands are shaking, but she manages to click on the image to make it bigger. Olive skin, dark eyes, and hair that has been cut short and gelled within an inch of its life because otherwise he would have to spend half his day trying to keep it under control. Lina would know. She feels like she is going to throw up, and she starts to stand up, but the room whirls around and Ren grabs her and pulls her back into the chair. He tries to calm her down, suggesting it is probably just a coincidence because she looks a lot like her mother too. Lina spins around, telling Ren that her mother never said Howard was her father. All along she talked about him like he was just her best friend. Ren's eyes widen in shock, and Lina explains that her grandmother told her Howard was her father, and her mother never corrected her because she wanted Lina to give him a chance without being mad at him. Lina puts her hand to her heart, which is trying to knock down her ribs, and she points out that she does not look anything like Howard, and Ren, look. They both look at the screen again. There is no room for maybe. Lina realizes that ever since she arrived, people have been telling her she looks Italian, and Ren said so when they met on the hill. She's Italian, she is half Italian. Ren tells her to calm down, but Lina is spiraling, asking if Howard knows and if he knows about her paternity. Ren hesitates, looking at the picture again, and Lina asks why Howard is going around introducing her as his daughter. She remembers overhearing one of Howard's guests ask if she was the photographer's daughter, and he said yes, but he did not say she was his too. Ren points out that both Howard and Sonia have said he is her father, so either they are all lying or they believe it. Lina puts her head in her hands, realizing that maybe only her mother knew the truth, and that is the reason she sent the journal. So Lina would know even if no one else did. Ren grimaces, acknowledging how difficult that would be. Lina shakes her head, saying that ever since she started reading the journal, she has been wondering if she even really knew her mother. She looks at the screen again, and realizes that her mother must have already been pregnant when she moved in with Howard. Ren asks what now, and Lina says they have to call Matteo and go meet him. Ren protests, saying that sounds like a bad idea, but Lina insists it is what her mother wanted her to do and she cannot face Howard like this. She grabs her phone to dial, but her hands are shaking too badly. Ren takes the phone from her and calls the gallery to find out when it is open and where it is. He learns the train to Rome runs all day, and they race to the train station, making it with just 2 minutes to spare. They collapse into seats, out of breath, and Ren warns that if his parents find out he is taking Lina to Rome to meet some random guy, they will kill him, and Howard will drop him in a boiling vat of oil. Lina insists Matteo is not some random guy, and she groans at the thought of Howard finding out he does not have a daughter either. The train begins to move, and Lina pulls out the journal, deciding to read the whole way. Ren asks how long until they get there, and Lina says 90 minutes. He tells her to read fast, and she promises she is normally boring. He doubts that. Lina continues reading her mother's journal. Her mother writes about the end of the semester and how she feels like she has come to the end of an era, with some of her best moments, but also some of her worst. She has not heard from X since that day in the train station, and she keeps asking herself how their relationship could have meant so much to her and so little to him. She writes about going on outings to Tuscan hill towns with Howard and Francesca, and how Howard is interviewing for jobs because he wants to do whatever it takes to stay in Italy. Lina reads about her mother's conflicting feelings, how she still loves Florence, but it has become a sad place because everywhere she goes she sees places she went with X. She wonders why their breakup was so sudden, and whether the school found out or if he met someone else, but she knows it is useless to think about. She writes about Howard taking her to the Florence American Cemetery and Memorial, where he has been working as a volunteer, and how she cannot imagine a more perfect place for him. Lina reads about her mother moving into the cemetery with Howard for the rest of the summer and how peaceful and healing it is. She writes about the wall of the missing and how strange it is that living, breathing people can suddenly be gone. Lina's mother finds comfort in the order of the cemetery, in the idea that nothing is messy anymore and everything is sealed up and final. Lina sets the journal down, disturbed by the word final. She realizes that her mother was wrong about that, because nothing is final when you leave people behind and do not tell them your secrets. She tells Ren that her mother moved in with Howard at the cemetery, but they were just friends, and she had to have been pregnant by then. She hands the journal to Ren and leans back, watching the scenery fly past her window, feeling a sense of dread and anticipation about what she is about to discover. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren arriving in Rome, ready to confront Matteo and uncover the truth about her mother's past. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 11. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren arriving in Rome and taking a taxi to Matteo's gallery. The cab ride is terrifying, with the driver weaving through traffic, honking aggressively and gesturing wildly at other drivers. Lina is convinced they are going to die, but Ren is surprisingly calm. He jokes that if he is going to die, he is glad he got to spend his last moments with Lina. They finally arrive at the gallery, a grey stone building with gold lettering reading Rossi Galleria e Scuola di Fotografia. Lina is overcome with nerves, her heart pounding in her chest. She presses the buzzer, and a man's voice answers in Italian, unlocking the door. She looks at Ren, asking if he is ready, and he asks if she's ready. She says no, but she shoves the door open anyway and launches herself into a large circular foyer with shiny tile and a huge light fixture. A blonde man in a dress shirt and tie sits behind a curved silver desk, and Lina tells him they are there to meet with Matteo. The man is initially reluctant, saying Matteo is upstairs teaching a class and he cannot promise he will have time to meet with them. Lina insists they will wait, and she gives her name as Lina Emerson. The man nods and says he will let Matteo know they are here. Lina and Ren explore the gallery, which is filled with framed photographs by Matteo. Lina is impressed by his work, but she is also disturbed by the connection to her mother. Ren calls her over to photograph, and Lina practically jumps out of her skin. It is a photograph of her, or at least the back of her, taken by her mother when she was 5 years old, standing on a stack of books to watch out the window. The tag reads, Carolina by Hadley Emerson. Lina realizes that Matteo knows about her, and she wonders if he has been waiting for her to show up. The man from the foyer comes back and asks if they have any questions, and Lina asks if he has anything else by Hadley Emerson. He says he can check, but he believes this is the only one. A door opens overhead, and suddenly there is a thundering of voices and footsteps. Class is out. Lina grabs Ren's arm, suddenly panicking and wanting to leave. She says she changed her mind and does not want to meet Matteo, that they should talk to Howard first because at least she knows her mother trusted him. Ren agrees and they race out of the room, but a man's voice stops them. They freeze, and Lina slowly turns around. A middle-aged man stands at the top of the staircase wearing an expensive shirt and slacks, with dark eyes fixed on her. He calls her Carolina, pronouncing it correctly, and asks her to come up to his office. Lina grabs Ren's hand and asks him to come with her. They follow Matteo into his office, which is filled with modern, eclectic furniture. Matteo asks what he can do for them, and Ren jumps in, saying they have questions about his programs. Matteo explains that the next course is full and offers to put Ren on the waiting list. Lina blurts out a question about the Hadley Emerson photograph, and Matteo reveals it was a gift from Hadley herself. He looks straight into Lina's eyes like a challenge. He suggests Ren go to the reception area to be put on the waiting list, and he leads Lina to another room to show her another Emerson photograph. When they are alone, Lina tells Matteo she is here because she is his daughter. Matteo's reaction is cold and cruel. He tells her she's her mother in a pair of skinny jeans and Converse sneakers, and he asks what she's doing there. Lina says she read about him in her mother's journal, and Matteo laughs bitterly, saying her mother was a stupid child in love with her instructor, that she had no exposure to life outside her small town and thought her life would be transformed into a fairy tale. He tells Lina that whatever ideas she has, she should erase them immediately, because he was her teacher and nothing more. Lina is stunned and hurt, and Matteo continues his attack. He tells her that her mother was unbalanced and a liar, that she spun an elaborate fantasy about them being in a relationship, and went so far as to believe it herself. Lina insists her mother was not delusional, but Matteo asks if anyone ever saw them together. He claims that her mother was struggling with her coursework and asked him to tutor her, but then she started calling him at strange hours and leaving things on his desk. He says she came to his apartment and told him she had fallen in love with him, and he tried to be kind and told her a relationship was not allowed. He says that is when she snapped, threatening to go to the school director and tell him Matteo had taken advantage of her, using her journal as proof. The next day he resigned, and later he heard she began sleeping with any man who looked her way, and Lina is probably a product of that. He tells Lina he wants nothing to do with her. Lina is devastated but defiant, telling Matteo he is a liar and a coward. She points out that she looks just like him, but Matteo insists she looks just like her mother and whatever poor man she suckered into her pathetic imaginations. He snatches the journal from her hands and flips through it, mocking the entries about X. He holds up the front cover, pointing out the words "I made the wrong choice" and telling Lina that even in her craziness her mother knew faking the journal was wrong. He says science has proven that the parts of the brain responsible for creativity and madness are the same, and her mother was a genius, but her mind was weak. Lina lunges at him, twisting the journal out of his hands and runs for the foyer. She bursts out onto the sidewalk, Ren chasing after her, She runs up the street, her legs heavy as sandbags, and when Ren catches up to her, she starts dry heaving, then sinks to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Ren kneels next to her, holding her, and she cries and cries, finally letting out all the grief and pain she has been holding inside for the past 10 months. She tells Ren what Matteo said, that her mother made it all up, and Ren is furious, calling Matteo a bastard. He asks if she believed him, and Lina hesitates but then shakes her head, saying she knows that was not her mother. Ren is relieved. Lina says she cannot believe her mother loved him, and Ren's face is suddenly just inches away from hers. They lock eyes, and the chapter ends with a moment of intense connection, the kiss that has been building between them finally happening. Lina is overwhelmed by the kiss, by her feelings for Ren, and by the emotional turmoil of the day, and she's left feeling more confused and more in love than ever before. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 12. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren kissing on the sidewalk in Rome, but the moment is abruptly interrupted when Ren pushes her off him. Lina is mortified, her face burning with embarrassment, and she desperately wants the sidewalk to swallow her up. Ren will not look at her, and Lina stammers an apology, saying she does not know what just happened. Ren says it is okay, but he does not think the timing is the best. Lina is devastated, feeling like she has completely ruined everything. She tries to cover up her embarrassment by insisting she just got carried away after the emotional experience with Matteo, and that they are just friends. She has never ever thought of him as anything more. Ren looks at her with an unreadable expression, then looks away, saying it is okay, do not worry about it. The taxi ride back to the train station is excruciatingly awkward. Ren sits as far away from her as physically possible, staring out the window like he is trying to memorize the streets. Lina is heartbroken, realizing she has completely misread the situation. She had thought Ren was into her, but now she sees that he clearly is not, and she has just made a huge fool of herself. She also realizes she's in love with him, which makes everything so much worse. She has only known him for 5 days, but she knows it is real, and the thought that she might have lost him as a friend is unbearable. At the train station, Ren tells Lina their train leaves in 45 minutes, and he goes off to get something to eat alone, leaving Lina sitting on a bench, feeling miserable. She tries to distract herself by reading the journal, but the words wriggle across the page like bugs, and she cannot concentrate. Ren returns with a prosciutto sandwich for her, and they sit in silence for the rest of the wait. Lina finally apologizes, saying she's sorry she put him in that situation and it was not fair. Ren says not to worry about it, but it does not feel okay, and Lina feels a cyclone in the center of her chest. On the train, Ren closes his eyes, and Lina tries to read the journal again to distract herself from the pain of losing Ren. She reads about her mother's realization that she was in love with Howard. Hadley writes about how Howard knew about X all along and how it was such a relief to talk about it with him. She writes about the ring Howard gave her, a thin gold ring from a second-hand shop in Florence, and how it fits perfectly. She writes about the night Howard asked her what she would photograph if she could photograph anything in the world, and she blurted out hope, meaning stillness and those moments when you just know things are going to work out. She writes about the morning Howard woke her up just before 5 and took her to a tower behind the cemetery, where they watched the sunrise together. It was there that they kissed for the first time, like they had kissed a million times before, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Lina's mother writes that she thought she wanted caprice and fire, but what she really wanted was someone who would wake her up early so she would not miss a sunrise, and that someone was Howard. Lina is struck by the beauty and sadness of the story, realizing that her mother and Howard were perfect for each other, but that things got in the way. She continues reading, and she learns that Francesca visited and immediately knew something had happened between Hadley and Howard. Hadley told her everything, and Francesca called it a fairy story. But then Francesca revealed that X had contacted her, trying to find Hadley. He said he had a change of heart and wanted to tell her something. Francesca gave Hadley his new phone number, but Hadley was not conflicted. She knew she wanted Howard. The next entry is a page filled with the words sono incinta over and over, and Lina knows what it means. I'm pregnant. She looks sadly at the page, realizing that the fairy tale had just blown up. She tells Ren that Howard was not just the rebound, that her mother fell in love with him. Ren asks what the page means, and Lina translates it for him. She puts the journal down, feeling a deep sadness for her mother, who had finally found true love only to have it complicated by an unplanned pregnancy. She also realizes that the journal is almost finished, and soon she will know the full story of what happened between her mother and Howard. The train ride continues, and Lina reflects on the irony of her situation. She came to Italy to escape her grief and to fulfill her mother's dying wish, but instead she has found herself in the middle of a complicated love story, one that is both beautiful and heartbreaking. She has also fallen in love with Ren, but she has lost him, and she is about to lose Howard too, because she knows she has to tell him the truth about her paternity. The chapter ends with Lina feeling overwhelmed by grief, confusion, and loss, wondering how she's going to survive the rest of the summer and whether she will ever be able to find happiness again. She also realizes that she and her mother are more alike than she ever knew. Both of them caught up in complicated love stories that seem doomed from the start. Love and Gelato, by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 13. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren arriving back in Florence, the train ride having been excruciatingly silent and awkward. Ren had dozed off for most of the trip, and his phone kept vibrating on the seat next to him like a giant bug. Lina finally glanced at it and saw a text message from Mimi, which made her heart sink even further. She knew Ren was probably going to tell Mimi about her kissing him, and she dreaded the confrontation that would surely follow. When they got off the train, Ren checked his messages, his hair hooding his eyes, and Lina clutched the journal tightly, feeling like she was wrapped up in a big sad cocoon. The ride back to the cemetery on Ren's scooter was brutally silent, with both of them lost in their own thoughts. Lina was devastated by the loss of Ren's friendship and furious at herself for messing everything up. She also knew she had to tell Howard the truth about not being his daughter, and the thought of breaking his heart was unbearable. When they finally pulled up to the cemetery, a big bus of tourists was unloading in it, and they all stared at Lina and Ren like they were part of the attraction. Howard stepped out of the visitors' center and waved at them, and Lina felt her insides freeze and shatter. She managed to wave back and even smile, but she was dreading the conversation that was coming. Ren dropped her off at the house, and Lina climbed off the scooter, handing him her helmet. She thanked him for helping her, saying it was not great, but at least now she had some answers. Ren said he was happy too, but he would not meet her eyes. He started up the scooter and said he hoped everything goes okay with Howard, that it was going to be all right because he really cares about her. His voice sounded like goodbye, and Lina felt her throat tighten. She asked if they could go running tomorrow, but Ren did not answer. Instead, he walked the scooter around in a circle, facing the road, and gave her a little nod saying "Ciao, Lina," and then he was gone. Lina walked into the house feeling utterly defeated. She called Addie and told her everything. That Howard was not her father, that Matteo was, and that she had kissed Ren, and he did not want to kiss her back. Addie was stunned and tried to comfort her, but Lina was inconsolable. She also told Addie that she still had to tell Howard the truth, and Addie promised to talk to her parents about Lina moving back in with them. After hanging up, Lina spent the next hour pacing around her room, picking up the journal and putting it down again, unable to read the final entries. She kept going to the window to watch for Howard, but he was taking forever with the tour group. Finally, when she thought she could not stand it anymore, Howard led the group back to the visitors' parking lot and waited as they boarded the tour bus. He walked into the visitors' center, and then he and Sonia came out and started walking toward the house. Lina panicked, realizing she could not tell him with Sonia around. She took the stairs two at a time down to the living room and met them on the front porch. Howard asked how her day had been, and Lina said it had been okay. He was wearing a light blue button-up with the sleeves rolled up, and his nose was sunburned, something Lina had never experienced because she was Italian. He said they needed to go to the movie right now, and Lina was relieved to have a delay. She asked if Ren was coming, and Howard said no. He could not make it. Sonia mentioned they were playing Roman Holiday, and Lina groaned inwardly because she did not want to hear about Rome. The movie was about a European princess who sneaks out of her bedroom window to go have fun in Rome, and falls in love with an American reporter, but they do not end up together because she has other demands. Lina only half watched it because she could not stop looking at Howard. He had a big, booming laugh and kept leaning over to tell her the names of places Audrey and her love interest were visiting. He even bought her a giant bag of candy, and she ate all of it but barely tasted it. On the way back, Sonia insisted Lina sit in the front, and they talked about Sonia's blind date. Lina asked how Sonia ended up in Florence, and Sonia said she came on vacation and fell in love, which did not last, but it got her to plant some roots. Lina groaned inwardly, realizing that falling in love and having it blow up in your face was just part of the Italian experience. When they got back to the cemetery, Howard dropped Sonia off at her house, and Lina knew it was finally time to tell him the truth. But when Howard told her how much it meant to him to have her there and that he was proud of her for exploring Florence, she lost her courage and could not tell him. She made some lame excuse about a headache and trudged up to her room, throwing herself on her bed. She knew she could not keep the secret forever, but she did not know how she was ever going to find the strength to tell him. Thomas called and invited her to a party, and she reluctantly agreed to go, thinking that at least it would be a distraction from her heartbreak. The chapter ends with Lina feeling more alone and hopeless than ever, trapped in a web of secrets and lies, and desperately missing her mother, who would have known exactly what to do. She looks out the window at the moon, feeling like it is having the last laugh at her expense. The chapter ends with Lina feeling overwhelmed and defeated, but also determined to find a way through the mess her life has become. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 14. The chapter opens with Lina waking up just before dawn the next morning. She had passed out on her bed fully dressed, and there's a dish of spaghetti perched on the edge of her dresser, the tomato sauce pooled in oily clumps. Howard must have tried to bring her dinner, but she had been too distraught to eat. Gray hazy light is filtering through her window, and she gets up and walks quietly over to her suitcase, rummaging around for some clean running clothes. She picks up the journal and creeps silently through the house, leaving through the back door. She makes her way toward the back gate, noticing that the cemetery looks completely different at different times of day, the pre-dawn light muting the colors. She goes through the back gate and breaks into a run, passing where she met Ren for the first time. She forces herself not to think about him, focusing instead on the crisp, clean air, and the rhythm of her feet on the ground. 1 mile, then 2. She follows a narrow footpath worn into the grass, not knowing where it leads, and then suddenly she sees it, the tower from her mother's journal. It is jutting out of the hill like a wild mushroom, and Lina stops running to stare at it. It is like stumbling across something magical, a perfect cylinder, gray and ancient-looking, and only about 30 feet tall. She runs up to the base and puts her hand on the wall, trailing it behind her as she circles around to the opening. The wooden door Howard moved for her mother is long gone, leaving a bare arched doorway so short she has to duck to walk under it. Inside it is empty except for a couple of shaggy spider webs and a pile of leaves. A crumbly spiral staircase rises through the tower's center, letting a pale circle of light into the room. Lina takes a deep breath and heads for the staircase, hoping all her answers are at the top. She has to walk carefully because half the steps look like they are just waiting for an excuse to collapse, and she has to do an acrobatic hurtle over the space where the final step once was, but finally she steps outside. The top of the tower is basically an open platform, its circumference lined by a 3-foot ledge, and she makes her way over to the edge. It is still pretty dark and gray out, but the view is stunning, like postcard stunning. To her left is a vineyard with rows of grapevines stretching out in thin silvery ropes, and everywhere else is rich Tuscan countryside, the occasional house marooned like a ship in the middle of an ocean of hills. Lina sighs, understanding why this was the place her mother had finally noticed Howard. Even if she had not already fallen for his sense of humor and awesome taste in gelato, she probably would have taken one look at the view and gone completely out of her mind with love. It was the sort of place that could make a stampede of buffaloes seem romantic. She sets the journal down on the ground and slowly makes her way around the platform, scanning every inch of it. She really wants to find some sign of her mother, a stone scratched with H+H, or maybe some lost journal pages, but all she finds are 2 spiders. She gives up on her little scavenger hunt and walks back to the center of the platform, wrapping her arms around herself. She needs a question answered, and she gets the feeling this is the best place to ask. She asks aloud why her mother sent her to Italy, but there is no answer. She tries again, asking why her mother sent her to be with Howard, but still nothing. The wind picks up and makes a whipping noise through the grass and trees, and suddenly all the loneliness and emptiness she carries around with her swells up so big it swallows her whole. She presses her palms to her eyes, pain ricocheting through her body. What if her mother and her grandmother and the counselor are wrong? What if she hurts this badly for the rest of her life? What if every second of every day would be less about what she has than what she has lost? She sinks to the floor, pain washing over her in big, jagged waves. Her mother had told her over and over how wonderful her life was going to be, how proud she was of her, how much she wished she could be there for the big moments and the little ones. She had said she would find a way to stay close to her, but so far she has just been gone, and all that gone stretches out in front of her like a horizon, endless and daunting and empty. Lina realizes she has been running around Italy trying to solve the mystery of the journal, trying to understand why her mother did what she did. But really she has just been looking for her, and she is not going to find her, ever. She says aloud that she cannot do this, that she cannot be here without her mother, and that is when she gets slapped, or nudged, by a word pushing itself into her brain. Look. She shades her eyes and looks up. The sun is rising over the hills, heating up the undersides of the clouds and setting them on fire in crazy shades of pink and gold. Everything around her is bright and beautiful and suddenly very clear. She does not get to stop missing her mother, ever. It is the thing that her life has handed her, and no matter how heavy it is, she's never going to be able to set it down. But that does not mean she's not going to be okay, or even happy. She cannot imagine it yet exactly, but maybe a day will come when the hole inside her will not ache quite so badly and she can think about her mother and remember, and it will be all right. That day feels light years away, but right at this moment she's standing on a tower in the middle of Tuscany and the sunrise is so beautiful that it hurts. And that is something. She picks up the journal, knowing it is time to finish it. She reads the final entries. Her mother writes about making the decision to leave Italy, realizing she has to protect her child from Matteo and she cannot take the chance that Italian law will keep her baby with him. She also writes that she cannot tell Howard how she feels about him because he will leave behind the life he has created for himself to start things with her, and she wants that so badly, but not enough to let him give up his dream. She writes that in loving Howard, she has to leave him, and to protect her child, she has to put as much distance between her and her father as possible. She writes that if she could go back to one moment, she would be back at the tower, a whole world of possibility ahead of her. And even though her heart hurts more than she ever thought it could, she would not take back that sunrise or this baby for anything. She writes that this is a new chapter, her life, and she's going to run at it with arms outstretched. Anything else would be a waste. The rest of the journal is blank. Lina slowly turns to the front cover and reads that first sentence one more time. I made the wrong choice. Sonia had been wrong. Her mother had not sent the journal to the cemetery for her. She had sent it for Howard. She had wanted him to know what had really happened and tell him that she had loved him all along. And then, even though she could not go back and change their story, she had done the next best thing. She had sent Lina. The chapter ends with Lina standing on the tower, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding the full weight of her mother's sacrifice and love. She knows that she has to go back and tell Howard the truth, not just about her paternity, but about everything. Her mother had sent her to Italy for a reason, and now she finally understands what it was. Lina feels a sense of peace and purpose wash over her, and she knows that she's exactly where she's supposed to be. She takes a deep breath, ready to face whatever comes next, and she runs back to the cemetery, determined to finally set things right. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 15. The chapter opens with Lina practically flying back to the cemetery, her heart pounding with nervousness and determination. She's incredibly anxious about what she's about to do, but she also feels light, as if a weight has been lifted from her shoulders. No matter what Howard's reaction is, she knows it is going to be okay, and he deserves to read her mother's story. She runs diagonally across the grounds, cutting through headstones and ignoring her blossoming side ache, desperate to catch Howard before he starts working. She finds him sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, and when he sees her running toward him, he stands up in alarm, asking if she's being chased again. Lina shakes her head, coming to a stop and struggling to catch her breath. Howard sits back down, commenting that he thought she was more into long-distance running. Lina shakes her head again and takes a deep breath, and then she asks him the question that has been burning inside her. Do you know you are not my father? For a few long seconds, the words hang in the space between them like shimmering soap bubbles. Then Howard smiles and asks her to define father. Lina's legs give out and she stumbles toward the porch, and Howard reaches out to steady her. She falls to a seat on the porch step next to him and says she means the man who gave her half her DNA. Howard stretches his legs out in front of him and admits that in that case, no, he is not her father. But if she goes with another definition, meaning a man who wants to be in her life and help raise her, then yes, he is. Lina groans, telling him that is sweet and everything, but he needs to explain himself because she has spent the last 24 hours completely confused and worried about hurting him. And he has known all along. Howard apologizes and says he did not know she had any idea. He settles in like he is about to tell a story he has told 1,000,000 times, and he begins. When he was 25, he met a woman who changed everything for him. She was bright and vibrant, and whenever he was with her, he felt like he could do anything. Lina interrupts to ask if he means her mother, and Howard tells her to let him finish. He says he fell completely head over heels in love with her and knew he had to do everything in his power to make her feel the same way, so he started by being her friend. He took an Italian class he did not need just to have some extra time with her. He sat in on the rest of her classes, and he even worked his way into her circle of friends. But every time he tried to summon the courage to tell her how he felt, he turned into a blob of jello. Lina is incredulous, and Howard explains that he liked her so much it tongue-tied him, and then he found out he was too late. While he was bumbling around, carrying her books to class and pretending he liked to go out dancing, some other man had swooped in and carried her off. Lina asks if he means Matteo Rossi, and Howard flinches, asking how she knows his name. Lina says she will tell him later, and Howard continues, saying he told himself that if this other guy was someone great who really cared about her and made her happy, he would leave it alone. But he knew Matteo, and he knew what he was really like. Unfortunately, Lina's mother was blinded by him for a long time, and even though they tried their hand at a relationship, she ended up choosing him. That is how Lina came to be, her relationship with Matteo. But when Lina's mother got sick, she was the one Howard asked to step in. And he did because he loved her. He nudges Lina and says she's kind of growing on him too. Lina groans again, telling him he got some of it wrong, and she asks why he and her grandmother told her he is her father if it is not true. Howard admits he can see now that it was wrong, and he is sorry. He was not planning to at first, but he and Lina's grandmother started communicating after her mother passed, and a few weeks in he realized that her grandmother assumed he was her father. He knew it was not true, but he worried that if he told her the truth she would change her mind about sending Lina, and her mother had made him promise to bring her here. He also thought it might be better for Lina that if she believed he was her father, it would make her more likely to come and give him a chance. Lina says she was a total brat, but Howard says she was actually pretty great. He says he did not know what else to do, so when her grandmother asked if she could tell Lina that he is her father, he said yes. He planned to tell her sooner, but after that night at the pizzeria, he thought he would let her settle in first. He says she does not seem to be much of the settling in type, and he should have known she would see right through it. Lina points out that he is twice as tall as her and has blonde hair, and they look nothing alike. Howard agrees, and he asks how long she's known. Lina says about a day, and she hands him the journal, explaining that it is her mother's journal from when she was living in Florence. Howard is stunned, realizing it is her journal, and she wrote about everything that happened between her and Matteo. Lina explains that she was using the journal to track down Matteo, and Ren helped her. Howard is shocked that she met him, and Lina tells him about the disastrous meeting. Howard is furious but also awed by her bravery. Lina explains that Sonia gave her the journal, and she realizes that her mother sent it for Howard, not for her. Howard opens the journal and reads that first sentence, "I made the wrong choice," and Lina leaves him alone to read it. She goes upstairs, and 2 hours later Howard comes to her door, journal in hand, and they go out to the porch to talk. His eyes are red, and he tells her it was hard reading all of that there were so many misunderstandings and missed connections. He admits he never dated Adrian, that Matteo did, and that he knew about Matteo's affairs with students. He explains that he called Matteo and told him to stay away from her mother, and that is when he broke up with her. He says he should have told her mother the truth, but he was a coward. He also admits he never tried to get her mother back because he thought she'd chosen Matteo. Lina tells him she's in if he's in, and Howard smiles. They talk about Ren, and Howard insists Lina cannot give up on him. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a sense of peace and closure, finally understanding the full story of her mother and Howard's love, and knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. She also feels a renewed sense of hope about her relationship with Ren, and she's determined to fight for him. The chapter ends with Lina feeling ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 16. The chapter opens with Howard insisting that Lina cannot give up on Ren. He tells her that if she wants to see things through, she needs to be good and sure that there had not been some kind of gross miscommunication between them. Lina shoves her remaining shreds of dignity into the back of her closet and calls Ren's cell phone twice, but both calls go straight to voicemail. She does her best to block out the image of him hitting reject. Finally, Howard helps her track down the Ferrara's phone number, and she calls their house. Odette answers cheerfully, and Lina asks if Ren is home. Odette says yes, but there is a pause, and then she comes back on the line, saying Ren cannot talk right now. Lina asks if she can come over to talk to him, and Odette puts her hand over the mouthpiece. When she comes back, she sounds confused, saying Ren said he's too busy because he's getting ready to go to Valentina's party. Lina perks up, realizing he is going for sure, and she asks Odette if it is for the girl who graduated last year. Odette confirms it, and Lina thanks her, knowing she will at least see him face to face. She hangs up and sends a quick text to Thomas accepting his invitation to the party, and then she books it all the way to the visitors' center, needing a favor from Howard and Sonia. When she bursts in, Howard and Sonia are going through a stack of papers, and Howard is wearing tiny old man reading glasses that make him look like a nearsighted lumberjack. Lina giggles, and Howard puts his hand on his chest, saying one of these days she's going to give him a heart attack. Lina tells him his glasses are so, and he asks so what, drawing himself up to his full height, and Lina busts out laughing again. She tells him she needs help, that she's going to a party tonight and she really needs to look amazing because it is her best shot at winning Ren back. She needs to find the dress, the one guaranteed to make anyone fall in love with you. Howard remembers the concept from Lina's mother's journal, and he agrees to help, telling Sonia they will have to close the cemetery early because finding a new dress is easy, but finding the dress is going to take some time. He winks at Lina, and Sonia shakes her head, saying she's still unclear about what they are talking about, but she knows they cannot close the cemetery because it is against regulations. Howard suggests they abandon it for a few hours while the three of them take an emergency shopping trip into Florence, and Lina bounces up and down with excitement. Sonia is reluctant, but Howard insists they need her because he will be completely useless when it comes to shopping. Sonia shudders, commenting on Howard's terrible taste and remembering the time she made him get rid of a horrible pair of corduroys that were sprouting hairs. Lina clasps her hands in front of her chest and begs Sonia to help her, saying she does not even know where dress stores are and she needs to look incredible. Sonia looks back and forth between Howard and Lina, then shakes her head, saying she thinks they have lost their minds, but she agrees to come. On the way into Florence, Lina fills Sonia in on the fact that Howard is not actually her father, and Sonia is shocked. Howard asks Sonia in the future not to redirect any of his deliveries, and Sonia promises she will never do anything like that again. She turns to Lina and asks if Ren is picking her up at 9, and Lina says she's going with Thomas. Sonia is surprised, and Howard explains that in Italian they say avere il cuore in mano, meaning you hold your heart in your hand, and every time Ren looks at Lina, he's crazy about her. Lina insists he is not, but Sonia agrees, saying the poor thing cannot help himself. Lina admits she's in love with Ren, and she tells them the whole story about the kiss in Rome, and his reaction. Howard and Sonia are both stunned, and Lina says that is why she needs the perfect dress. Sonia asks if money is an object, and Howard says no. She tells him to turn left, she knows where they need to go. They drive to a dress shop near the center of the city, and when they burst in, the woman behind the counter looks up in alarm. Howard tells her they are looking for the most beautiful dress in the world, and the woman claps her hands, calling for 2 assistants. They measure Lina's waist, butt, and bust, and then they start grabbing dresses from all over the store, stuffing her into the dressing room. Lina tries on several dresses, but none of them are right. The first one is cotton candy pink and reminds her of throwing up on a Ferris wheel. The second is yellow and feathery and looks like Big Bird's carcass, and the third is a white poofy dress that makes her look like a marshmallow on her wedding day. She's about to give up hope when Sonia asks the shopkeeper's oldest daughter for help. The woman comes in, studies Lina's features, and then returns with a pinkish nude-colored dress with embellished lace all over the top, and a short flowy skirt. Lina takes off the marshmallow dress and eases the new one over her head, and the fabric is smooth and silky, slipping easily over her chest and hips, and landing in the exact right spot. She does not even have to look in the mirror to know that it is the one. She buys the dress, and Sonia helps her style her hair, and loans her a pair of heels and diamond stud earrings. Lina puts on makeup and perfume and practices her speech to Ren over and over, hoping he will give her a chance to explain. When Thomas arrives in his father's BMW convertible, Howard answers the door and gives him a stern look. Lina comes downstairs, and Thomas's jaw literally drops. He says she looks really pretty, and Lina thinks he looks nice too in his gray fitted suit. She gives Howard a hug, and he tells her it is going to work out. Lina follows Thomas out to the car, and they drive to the party. Thomas is charming and attentive, but Lina's mind is elsewhere, focused on finding Ren. The party is huge and extravagant, with a red carpet and a chandelier made of colored glass. Lina is overwhelmed, but she's determined to find Ren. She asks Elena if she has seen him, and Elena says no, but she thinks Mimi would kill him if he came. Lina is frustrated, and she spends the next couple of hours searching for Ren, but he never shows up. She's about to give up hope when Thomas takes her outside to see the paper lanterns being released into the night sky. He tries to kiss her, but Lina pushes him away, telling him she cannot do this because she's in love with Ren. Thomas is surprised but understanding, and he points out that Ren is standing a few yards away. Lina turns and sees Ren, and she runs over to him, her heart pounding in her chest. The chapter ends with Lina finally face to face with Ren, determined to tell him how she really feels, and hoping that it is not too late to salvage their friendship and maybe even start something more. The beautiful lanterns rising into the night sky provide a romantic backdrop, but Lina knows that the real magic will happen if she can just find the courage to speak from her heart. The chapter ends on a cliffhanger, with Lina about to confess her love to Ren, unsure of how he will respond. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 17. The chapter opens with Lina finally face to face with Ren at the party, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been looking for him all night, and now he is standing right in front of her, looking incredibly handsome in a navy blue suit. She touches his back and says his name, and he turns around, his expression unreadable. Lina says she was really hoping he would be here and asks if they can talk. Suddenly Mimi materializes from a nearby group of girls, wearing a fitted black dress with cutout panels along the ribcage, her eyes outlined in dark liner. She looks like a tiger, and she's clearly furious. She links her arm with Ren's and says hello to Lina, asking how Thomas is. Lina says he's okay, and Mimi tells Ren they should go back inside. Lina asks if she can talk to Ren for a minute, but Ren says he's kind of busy. Mimi tightens her grip on his arm, but Ren agrees to give Lina 1 minute. Mimi flounces away, and Ren asks what is up. Lina asks if he will go for a walk with her, and they walk to the edge of the yard, past a couple making out against a tree and a group of guys riding croquet mallets like jockeys. They finally come to a white stone bench, and Ren sits down. Lina sits down next to him and takes a deep breath. She tells him she has never met anyone like him, that he is smart and funny and really easy to be around, and he is basically the one person she has met since her mother died who she does not feel like she has to act fake around. She apologizes again for kissing him in Rome, saying it was not fair because he had a girlfriend, or had a girlfriend. She does not know, and she looks at him, hoping he will clarify. But he does not. She tells him she really likes him, a lot. But if he does not feel the same way, it is okay, because he is really important to her, and she hopes they can still be friends. Fireworks start exploding in the sky, creating a romantic backdrop, but Ren does not respond. Lina shifts uncomfortably and asks him to say something. He shakes his head and asks why she did not tell him sooner, and why she said she had never thought of him as more than a friend. Lina admits she was trying to save face because he obviously did not want to kiss her, and she was so embarrassed she was just trying to fix the situation. Ren looks up and says she's wrong, that he really did want to kiss her, but he stopped because he was worried she did not mean it. Meeting Matteo was pretty crazy, and he did not want things to happen just because she was in the middle of an emotional roller coaster, and then afterwards she told him she did not mean it. Lina insists she did mean it, but Ren cuts her off. He tells her he liked Mimi for a long time, like 2 years, and he thought he was the luckiest guy ever when things finally started happening between them. But then he met Lina, and suddenly he was avoiding Mimi's calls and trying to think of ways to get her to hang out with him. So the night they went to space, he called Mimi and broke up with her. He did not know if things were going to work out between them, but he really wanted the chance. He shakes his head and says then they went to Rome, and all that stuff happened, and now tonight he saw her all over Thomas. Lina is outraged and points out that he was the one who had a girlfriend all this time, and he is not the one who was just rolling around on the ground with someone else. She asks what she is, his backup plan. Ren is defensive, and Lina jumps to her feet, telling him if he had actually been watching, he would have noticed that she pushed Thomas off her and told him she likes Ren, but she says forget it. She does not even care anymore. Ren says he does not either. He is going back to the party, and she had better get back to her date. He turns and walks away, and Lina yells stronzo after him, the Italian word for jerk. A heart-shaped firework explodes over his head, and the chapter ends with Lina feeling utterly devastated, convinced that she has lost Ren forever. She stands alone in the darkness, the fireworks bursting above her, but she cannot see their beauty. All she can feel is the pain of rejection and the knowledge that she has ruined everything. She's left wondering if she will ever be able to fix things with Ren, or if her chance at happiness in Italy has slipped through her fingers. The chapter ends on a note of heartbreak and uncertainty, with Lina more alone than ever, the romantic setting serving as a cruel contrast to her shattered emotions. She has finally told Ren how she feels, but it seems to have only pushed him further away, and she does not know if she will ever be able to repair the damage. The chapter ends with Lina feeling hopeless and defeated, standing under the fireworks with tears streaming down her face, realizing that sometimes love is not enough to overcome the misunderstandings and hurt that have built up between two people. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 18. The chapter opens with Lina calling Howard to come pick her up from the party. It took him almost an hour to find Valentina's house because Lina did not know who Valentina was and could not find anyone who knew the address. Selma and her bionic cleavage were nowhere to be found, and she could not find Elena or Marco or anyone else she recognized. Finally, she got the bouncer to tell her where she was, but he did not speak much English and kept guarding his clipboard from her like he thought she was trying to trick him. She finally forced her phone on him and he gave directions to Howard. By the time Howard's car pulled up, all the anger had drained out of Lina and she was about as perky as a wet noodle. She felt crumpled and bedraggled, and when she got in the car, Howard did not even ask how it had gone. He could tell by her face. When they got to the house, Lina threw her dress on the floor, put on a t-shirt and pajama pants, and went downstairs. She was on the verge of tears, but she could not handle the thought of crying alone in her room again. She'd reached a threshold of pathetic. Howard asked if she wanted gelato or tea, and Lina chose gelato. He told her to go sit in the living room, and he would bring her a bowl. She sat cross-legged on the couch, resting her head back against the wall, feeling completely defeated. Howard walked in with 2 bowls of gelato, strawberry and coconut, and apologized for not having stracciatella, saying he could tell it was a stracciatella night. Lina said it was okay, and Howard asked if it was a rough night. Lina admitted she did not think things were going to work out with Ren, not even friend-wise. She told Howard about the screaming match and that she called Ren a bad word in Italian. Howard asked what it was, and Lina said stronzo. He nodded gravely, saying they can recover from stronzo. He reminded her that it is not over until it is over, and he told her that for years he thought things were completely finished with her mother, but they actually started talking again before her diagnosis. Lina was surprised, and Howard explained that her mother sent him an email and they corresponded for almost a year. It was like they picked up right where they left off, just fun banter back and forth. Lina asked if they ever saw each other, and Howard said no. She probably knew that if he ever saw her again, he would carry her off. No questions asked. Lina said they basically have the saddest story she has ever heard, but Howard said he would not say that. There was a lot of good. Lina asked how to get over Ren, and Howard admitted he was the worst person to ask because he fell in love and stayed that way. But he said it is worth it, quoting a line about how a life without love is like a year without summer. Lina said she was about ready for summer to be over, and Howard smiled, telling her to give it some time. It will be all right. Howard and Lina stayed up really late talking. Lina checked her phone and had a 3-word text from Addie saying they said yes, meaning Addie's parents had agreed to let Lina live with them. Howard and Lina spent more than an hour discussing the pros and cons of staying or leaving Florence. He even pulled out a line notebook and made 2 columns with reasons to stay and reasons to go at the top. Lina did not add Ren to the list because she could not decide which side he belonged on. Brokenhearted and see him every day, or brokenhearted and never see him again. Either one sounded incredibly miserable. Finally, she went up to bed, where she spent the night tossing and turning. She realized there is a reason they call it falling in love, because when it happens, that is exactly how it feels. There is no doing or trying. You just let go and hope that someone is going to be there to catch you. Otherwise, you're going to end up with some pretty hefty bruises. Lina must have dozed off eventually, because around 4 in the morning she woke in a 5-alarm panic. Something had just hit her. She scrambled to her feet, her heart racing. Her window was as wide open as ever, and a dusting of stars glittered at her from the cemetery's treetops. Everything was calm and still. She tried to convince herself it was just dreaming, but then she looked down and saw that there were coins everywhere. They were scattered across her bed and rug, and a few of them had even made it onto the dress. They were mostly copper-colored 1 or 2 cent coins, but some of them were 20 or 50 cents, and there was even a 2-euro coin. Her bedroom was raining money. Another coin arced through her open window, hitting her square in the face, and Lina did a dramatic tuck-and-cover move, but then she realized what was happening. Someone was throwing money at her through her window. Either a government official was here to let her know she had won the Italian Powerball, or Ren was trying to wake her up. Either way, her night had just gotten a whole lot better. She jumped up and ran over to the window. Ren was standing about 6 feet from the house, his arm cocked back to hurl another coin. Lina dropped to the floor again, and Ren apologized. She slowly raised herself back up, and she saw that Ren's jacket and tie were sprawled out on the grass, and he was holding a white paper bag in his non-throwing hand. She was so happy to see him it made her want to punch his lights out. They said hi, and Lina asked him to come down. She threw one leg over the windowsill and slowly climbed down the house, using uneven bricks as footholds. Ren held his arms out to catch her, and she had to jump the last few feet, smashing into him and leaving them tangled up on the ground. They sprang to their feet, and Ren said she could have used the stairs. Lina said stairs are for stronzos. A light turned on in Howard's room, and Ren whispered his name in terror. Lina grabbed his hand and they ran for the back fence, tripping over every single curb they came across. They reached the back wall, and Lina lied that Howard's light was off again. She turned to look at Ren, but she was so nervous her eyes kept sliding off his face. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren standing in the dark, finally alone and ready to talk, the tension between them palpable and the possibility of reconciliation hanging in the air. Lina's heart is pounding, and she's desperate to know why Ren is there and whether he is ready to listen to what she has to say. The chapter ends on a note of hope and uncertainty, with Lina poised on the brink of a conversation that could change everything. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 19. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren standing in the darkness behind the cemetery, the tension between them palpable. Ren tells Lina that she really looked amazing tonight, that it was her version of the dress. Lina admits she does not think it worked, but Ren says it did. Trust him. He takes a deep breath and says he was pretty upset when he saw her with Thomas. Lina nods, ignoring the flicker of hope in her chest. Ren says he really needs to apologize, that he was pretty upset back in Rome when she said she had never, ever considered him as more than a friend. Lina protests that she only said ever twice, but Ren insists it was a slap in the face. He says when it comes to Thomas, he is a total idiot because Thomas is like a British pop star, and he asks how you compete with that. Lina groans and tells Ren that Thomas actually grew up near Boston, and when he gets really drunk he forgets about the British thing and sounds like a guy yelling at Red Sox games with letters painted on his beer belly. Ren is amused, and Lina apologizes for telling him she had never considered him as more than a friend. It was not true, she says. Ever. She also tells him he is not a stronzo. Ren smiles, and Lina asks where she learned that word. She admits it was from Mimi. Ren asks if she meant it back there when she said she's not with Thomas, and Lina nods. Ren says he is 100% available, and Lina's smile ramps up like 10 more degrees. They look at each other for another long minute, and Lina wonders if they are just going to stand around looking at each other. Ren takes a tiny step forward and asks if she finished the journal. Lina says yes, and she explains that she thinks her mother and Howard were perfect for each other. Things just got in the way. She also tells him that Howard knew all along that he was not her father. He just really wanted to be in her life. Ren holds out the white paper bag he has been carrying, saying it is an official apology. After he left the party, he went into Florence and started driving around asking people where he could find a secret bakery. Finally, some women walking home from a party told him where to go, and he found it on Via del Canto Rivolto. Lina opens the bag and warm, buttery heaven wafts up at her. It is a flaky, crescent-shaped pastry wrapped in white tissue paper. Ren says it is a cornetta con Nutella, and he bought 2 of them, but ate the other one on the way. He used his leftover change to wake her up. Lina takes a big bite of the cornetta, and it is warm and melty and tastes like every perfect thing that could ever happen to you. Like Italian summers, first loves, and chocolate. She tells Ren that next time, please do not eat her other one. Ren laughs and says he was not sure if she was going to talk to him at all, but he knew food was probably his best bet. Lina takes a deep breath and tells Ren that she meant what she said at Valentina's, that he is the one she likes. Maybe love. Ren grins and says that is good news because he maybe loves her too. They grin at each other, and a warm, spicy feeling drips straight through Lina's core. She can tell Ren is feeling the same thing because suddenly they are standing so close she can see every single one of his eyelashes. She thinks kiss me, kiss me, kiss me, and Ren squints, saying he thinks she has Nutella on her face. Lina groans and tells him to just kiss her already, but she does not finish because he dives on her and they kiss. It is a really, really good kiss, and Lina realizes she has been waiting absolutely her entire life to be kissed by Lorenzo Ferrara in an American cemetery in the middle of Italy. They break apart, somehow having ended up on the grass, and they both roll on their backs and lie there looking up at the stars with big Christmas morning smiles. Lina asks if they can please count that as their first official kiss. Ren says first of many, but if it is okay with her, he is not going to forget that one in Rome either. Before he so rudely interrupted it, that kiss was pretty much the best thing that had ever happened to him. Lina says me too. Ren rolls to his side, propping himself up on one elbow, and asks if she has ever thought about what it would be like to stay here in Italy permanently, now that she has a boyfriend and all that. Lina says she was actually kind of working on that earlier. Addie texted and told her that she could live with her family next year, and Howard and she spent a long time talking about it. Ren asks Anne, and Lina says she's staying. Ren gasps, asking if she just rolled her R. He swears she just rolled her R, and he asks her to say it again. Lina says Lorenzo, and she tells him she's half Italian, right? She should be able to roll her R. She points out that she tells him she's staying in Florence, and he gets excited that she can say his name. Ren says he has never been so excited in his life. They grin at each other, and Lina leans over and kisses him again because that is totally something they do now. Ren says this is officially la notte più bella della mia vita. Lina says she's sure she would totally agree if she had any idea what that meant. Ren says she will be speaking Italian in no time. He interlocks his fingers with hers and asks what they are going to do now that they will not be chasing her mother's ex-boyfriends around. Lina says, fall in love. Ren says, way ahead of you, and he extends his index finger, lining it up against hers to make a little steeple. He says when they are together, they make one whole Italian. Lina smiles, looking down at their fingers and feeling her heart grow so fast and big, she has to shut her eyes to keep it from bursting out. Ren leans in and asks if she's crying. Lina shakes her head, slowly opening her eyes and smiling at him again. She says it is nothing, but it is not nothing. She does not want to ruin the moment by explaining it to him, but suddenly it is like she has a zoomed-out view of this moment and she never, ever wants it to end. She has Nutella on her face and her first real love sprawled out next to her, and any minute the stars are going to sink back into the sky in preparation for a new day. For the first time in a long time, she cannot wait for what that day will bring. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she is ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal. That was something. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 20. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren lying on the grass behind the cemetery, still basking in the afterglow of their reconciliation and first official kiss. The stars are twinkling overhead and Lina feels a profound sense of peace and happiness that she has not felt in a very long time. She has Nutella on her face and her first real love sprawled out next to her, and she cannot imagine a more perfect moment. Ren interlocks his fingers with hers and asks what they are going to do now that they will not be chasing her mother's ex-boyfriends around. Lina says fall in love, and Ren says way ahead of you. He extends his index finger, lining it up against hers to make a little steeple, and he says when they are together, they make one whole Italian. Lina smiles, looking down at their fingers and feeling her heart grow so fast and big she has to shut her eyes to keep it from bursting out. Ren leans in and asks if she's crying, and Lina shakes her head, slowly opening her eyes and smiling at him again. She says it is nothing, but it is not nothing. She does not want to ruin the moment by explaining it to him, but suddenly it is like she has a zoomed-out view of this moment and she never, ever wants it to end. She has Nutella on her face and her first real love sprawled out next to her, and any minute the stars are going to sink back into the sky in preparation for a new day. For the first time in a long time, she cannot wait for what that day will bring. Ren asks if she is really staying in Italy permanently, and Lina confirms that she is. She explains that she talked to Howard about it and Addie's parents said she could live with them, but she's decided to stay in Florence. Ren is overjoyed, and he says this is officially the most beautiful night of his life. Lina jokes that she would agree if she knew what he was saying, and Ren promises she will be speaking Italian in no time. They lie there for a while longer, talking and laughing and kissing, and Lina feels like she's floating on a cloud. She tells Ren about her conversation with Howard and how he made a list of pros and cons about her staying in Italy. Ren asks which side won, and Lina says she's staying so the pros must have won. Ren is thrilled, and he tells her that he is going to teach her everything about Italy, from the language to the food to the culture. Lina is excited, and she tells him she cannot wait. They finally get up and walk back to the house, and Lina is surprised to see that Howard is still awake, sitting on the porch swing with a cup of coffee. He smiles when he sees them, and Lina knows he has been waiting up to make sure she's okay. She introduces Ren as her boyfriend, and Howard nods approvingly, telling Ren that he is a good kid. Ren is still a little intimidated by Howard, but he manages to shake his hand and say thank you. Lina says goodnight to Ren, and he gives her a long, lingering kiss before he leaves. She watches him walk away, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, and then she turns to Howard. He smiles and tells her he is happy for her, that she deserves to be happy. Lina thanks him and says she's sorry for all the drama she has caused. Howard waves it off, saying it is part of being a teenager and he would not have it any other way. He tells her that her mother would be so proud of her, and Lina feels tears prick her eyes. She hugs him tightly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for everything he has done for her. She goes up to her room, feeling lighter than she has in months, and she falls asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of Ren and their future together. The next morning, Lina wakes up to the sun streaming through her window, and she feels a sense of excitement and anticipation that she has not felt in a very long time. She gets dressed and goes downstairs, and Howard is making breakfast. He tells her that Ren called and said he is coming over later, and Lina feels her heart flutter. Howard asks if she has any plans for the day, and Lina says she wants to go see Sonia to thank her for the journal and to tell her that everything worked out. Howard says that is a great idea, and he gives her a hug before she leaves. Lina walks over to Sonia's house, and Sonia is surprised to see her. Lina thanks her for the journal and tells her that it helped her understand everything about her mother and Howard. Sonia is happy to hear it, and she tells Lina that she is glad she came to Italy. Lina says she's glad too, and she tells Sonia about her decision to stay. Sonia is thrilled, and she gives Lina a big hug. Lina leaves Sonia's house feeling a sense of closure and peace. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she is ready to embrace her new life in Italy. She walks back to the house, and Ren is waiting for her on the porch. He smiles when he sees her, and Lina feels her heart skip a beat. She knows that she has found her home, not in a place but in a person. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Lina knows that she is exactly where she's supposed to be, and she is ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that she has Ren by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. The final lines of the chapter echo the themes of hope and new beginnings that have been central to the novel, and Lina is ready to embrace her new life with open arms. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 21. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren spending a perfect day together, exploring Florence and enjoying each other's company. They visit all the places that were significant in her mother's journal, including the Duomo, Ponte Vecchio, and the Boboli Gardens. Lina feels like she's seeing the city for the first time, experiencing it through the eyes of her mother and through the joy of being with Ren. They walk hand in hand through the cobblestone streets, stopping for gelato and laughing at the tourists who are taking pictures of everything in sight. Lina tells Ren about her conversation with Howard and her decision to stay in Italy, and Ren is overjoyed. He tells her that he is going to teach her everything about Italy, from the language to the food to the culture. Lina is excited, and she tells him she cannot wait. They end the day by watching the sunset from the tower behind the cemetery, the same tower where her mother and Howard had their first kiss. Lina feels a deep connection to her mother's past, and she's grateful for the journey that brought her here. She tells Ren that she feels like she has finally found her place in the world, and Ren tells her that he feels the same way. They kiss as the sun sets, and Lina knows that this is just the beginning of their story. The next few weeks are a whirlwind of happiness for Lina. She spends every spare moment with Ren, exploring Italy and falling more deeply in love with him. She also spends time with Howard, getting to know him better and building a real father-daughter relationship. Howard tells her that he is proud of her and that her mother would be too. Lina feels like she's finally healing from the grief of losing her mother, and she's grateful for the new family she's found in Italy. She also keeps in touch with Addie, telling her all about her adventures and her new relationship. Addie is thrilled for her and promises to come visit as soon as she can. Lina feels like her life is finally coming together, and she's excited for the future. She starts taking Italian lessons and even enrolls in a photography class, feeling inspired by her mother's legacy. She also spends time with Sonia, learning more about the cemetery and the memorial, and she feels a sense of peace and purpose that she has never felt before. One evening, Howard tells Lina that he wants to show her something. He takes her to the wall of the missing, the memorial that her mother photographed, and he tells her that he has added her mother's name to the wall. Lina is stunned and deeply moved. She asks Howard why he did that, and he tells her that Hadley will always be part of the cemetery and part of his life. Lina hugs him, tears streaming down her face. She feels a profound sense of gratitude and love for the man who has become her father in every way that matters. She knows that her mother would be so proud of her and so happy that she has found a home in Italy. Lina and Howard stand together in the cemetery, looking at the wall of the missing, and Lina feels a sense of closure and peace. She knows that her mother's spirit is with her, and she is ready to embrace her new life. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on the journey that has brought her to this moment. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she is excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the cemetery, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She's no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she's home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she is ready to live her life to the fullest. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 22. The chapter opens with Lina continuing to settle into her new life in Italy, feeling more at home with each passing day. She has been taking Italian lessons and practicing with Ren, who is endlessly patient and encouraging. She's also taking a photography class inspired by her mother's legacy, and she feels a deep connection to her mother every time she picks up a camera. She has been spending a lot of time with Howard too, and their relationship has grown into something real and meaningful. He is no longer just the man who pretended to be her father. He is her father in every way that matters. They have dinner together most nights, talking about her mother, about Italy, and about the future. Lina feels like she's finally healing from the grief of losing her mother, and she's grateful for the new family she has found. She also keeps in touch with Addie, who is thrilled for her and promises to come visit as soon as she can. Lina feels like her life is finally coming together, and she is excited for the future. One afternoon, Lina is walking through the cemetery when she sees a familiar figure in the distance. It is Gloria, the tacky tourist from Alabama, and she's with Hank and a group of other tourists. Lina is amused to see her again, and she walks over to say hello. Gloria is thrilled to see her, and she immediately starts telling her about all the sights they have seen since their last visit. Lina listens patiently, amused by Gloria's enthusiasm and her endless stories. She asks Gloria if she's enjoying her trip, and Gloria says it has been the trip of a lifetime. She tells Lina that she and Hank are planning to come back next year, and Lina says she hopes they do. Gloria asks Lina if she's still living at the cemetery, and Lina says she is, and she plans to stay. Gloria is delighted and says that Lina is a lucky duck to live in such a beautiful place. Lina agrees, and she realizes that she truly does feel lucky to be here. She says goodbye to Gloria and Hank, and she continues on her walk, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. Later that day, Ren takes Lina to a small village in the hills outside Florence. They walk through the cobblestone streets hand in hand, and Ren shows her his favorite spots. They stop at a small cafe for coffee and pastries, and Lina feels like she's living in a dream. Ren tells her that he has something to show her, and he leads her to a small chapel at the edge of the village. Inside, the chapel is simple and beautiful, with a stained glass window that casts colorful light across the floor. Ren tells Lina that this is where his grandparents got married, and it is one of his favorite places in the world. Lina is touched by the gesture, and she feels a deep connection to Ren and to his family. They sit in the chapel for a while, holding hands and talking about the future. Ren tells Lina that he wants to spend the rest of his life with her, and Lina feels her heart swell with love. She tells him that she wants the same thing, and they kiss, sealing their promise to each other. Lina knows that she has found her soulmate, and she's grateful for every moment they have together. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the Tuscan hills, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She is no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she is home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings. And Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she is ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she is ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright, and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 23. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren continuing to build their relationship, spending every possible moment together. They explore Florence, visit the surrounding countryside, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. Lina feels like she has known Ren her whole life, and she cannot imagine her life without him. She is also growing closer to Howard, and their relationship has become something truly special. He is no longer just the man who pretended to be her father. He is her father in every way that matters. They have dinner together most nights, talking about her mother, about Italy, and about the future. Lina feels like she's finally healing from the grief of losing her mother, and she's grateful for the new family she has found. She also keeps in touch with Addie, who's thrilled for her and promises to come visit as soon as she can. Lina feels like her life is finally coming together, and she is excited for the future. One afternoon, Lina is walking through the cemetery when she sees a familiar figure in the distance. It is Gloria, the tacky tourist from Alabama, and she is with Hank and a group of other tourists. Lina is amused to see her again, and she walks over to say hello. Gloria is thrilled to see her, and she immediately starts telling her about all the sights they have seen since their last visit. Lina listens patiently, amused by Gloria's enthusiasm and her endless stories. She asks Gloria if she's enjoying her trip, and Gloria says it has been the trip of a lifetime. She tells Lina that she and Hank are planning to come back next year, and Lina says she hopes they do. Gloria asks Lina if she's still living at the cemetery, and Lina says she is, and she plans to stay. Gloria is delighted and says that Lina is a lucky duck to live in such a beautiful place. Lina agrees, and she realizes that she truly does feel lucky to be here. She says goodbye to Gloria and Hank, and she continues on her walk, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. Later that day, Ren takes Lina to a small village in the hills outside Florence. They walk through the cobblestone streets hand in hand, and Ren shows her his favorite spots. They stop at a small cafe for coffee and pastries, and Lina feels like she's living in a dream. Ren tells her that he has something to show her, and he leads her to a small chapel at the edge of the village. Inside, the chapel is simple and beautiful, with a stained glass window that casts colorful light across the floor. Ren tells Lina that this is where his grandparents got married, and it is one of his favorite places in the world. Lina is touched by the gesture, and she feels a deep connection to Ren and to his family. They sit in the chapel for a while, holding hands and talking about the future. Ren tells Lina that he wants to spend the rest of his life with her, and Lina feels her heart swell with love. She tells him that she wants the same thing, and they kiss, sealing their promise to each other. Lina knows that she has found her soulmate, and she's grateful for every moment they have together. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the Tuscan hills, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She is no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she is home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she's ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she is supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Lina knows that she has finally found her place in the world, and she's ready to face whatever comes next with Ren by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. She's no longer the lost girl who arrived in Italy with nothing but grief. She's a young woman who has found love, family, and a home. The chapter ends on a note of hope and happiness, with Lina looking forward to the future with optimism and joy. She knows that her mother would be proud of her, and she's determined to live her life to the fullest, honoring her mother's memory and embracing the love she has found. The final lines of the chapter leave the reader with a sense of warmth and satisfaction, knowing that Lina has found her happy ending. She's home, she's loved, and she's ready for whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren walking hand in hand into the sunset, their future bright and full of promise. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 24. The chapter opens with Lina experiencing a profound sense of peace and contentment as she continues to settle into her new life in Italy. She has been living at the cemetery for several weeks now, and what once felt like a strange and intimidating place has become her home. She has grown close to Howard, and their relationship has blossomed into something truly special. He is no longer just the man who pretended to be her father. He is her father in every way that matters. They have dinner together most nights, talking about her mother, about Italy, and about the future. Lina feels like she's finally healing from the grief of losing her mother, and she's grateful for the new family she's found. She also continues to spend time with Ren, and their relationship has grown deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. They explore Florence together, visit the surrounding countryside, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. Lina feels like she has known Ren her whole life, and she cannot imagine her life without him. One afternoon, Lina is sitting on the porch swing, reading her mother's journal for what feels like the 100th time. She has read it so many times that she has memorized every word, but she still finds comfort in her mother's voice. She's thinking about how much her mother would have loved to see her now, happy and in love, and surrounded by people who care about her. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she is grateful for the journey that brought her here. Howard comes out and sits next to her, and they talk about her mother and the journal. Howard tells Lina that he is glad she came to Italy, and that he is proud of the person she has become. Lina thanks him, and she tells him that she's glad she came too. She feels a deep sense of gratitude for everything Howard has done for her, and she knows that her mother would be happy to see them together. Later that day, Ren comes over, and he and Lina go for a walk through the cemetery. They walk hand in hand, talking about their future and the life they want to build together. Ren tells Lina that he wants to marry her someday, and Lina feels her heart swell with love. She tells him that she wants the same thing, and they kiss, sealing their promise to each other. Lina knows that she has found her soulmate, and she is grateful for every moment they have together. They sit on the grass and watch the sunset, and Lina feels a sense of peace and happiness that she has never felt before. She knows that she is exactly where she is supposed to be, and she is ready to embrace whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the cemetery, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She is no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she's home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she's ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright, and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Lina knows that she has finally found her place in the world, and she is ready to face whatever comes next with Ren by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. She's no longer the lost girl who arrived in Italy with nothing but grief. She's a young woman who has found love, family, and a home. The chapter ends on a note of hope and happiness, with Lina looking forward to the future with optimism and joy. She knows that her mother would be proud of her, and she is determined to live her life to the fullest, honoring her mother's memory and embracing the love she's found. The final lines of the chapter leave the reader with a sense of warmth and satisfaction, knowing that Lina has found her happy ending. She's home, she's loved, and she's ready for whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren walking hand in hand through the cemetery, their future bright and full of promise. Lina feels a sense of peace and contentment that she has never felt before, and she knows that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. She is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 25. The chapter opens with Lina waking up to another beautiful Italian morning, the sun streaming through her window and casting a warm glow across her room. She feels a sense of joy and gratitude that has become her new normal, a far cry from the grief and confusion that consumed her when she first arrived in Italy. She has been living at the cemetery for several months now, and what once felt like a strange and intimidating place has become her sanctuary. She has grown close to Howard, and their relationship has blossomed into something truly special. He is her father in every way that matters, and she cannot imagine her life without him. She also continues to spend time with Ren, and their relationship has grown deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. They explore Florence together, visit the surrounding countryside, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. Lina feels like she has known Ren her whole life, and she cannot imagine her life without him. Lina gets dressed and goes downstairs, where Howard is making breakfast. He tells her that he has something important to discuss with her, and Lina feels a flutter of nervousness. She sits down at the table, and Howard tells her that he has been thinking about their future. He says that he has been considering adopting her, officially making her his daughter. Lina is stunned and deeply moved. She asks Howard if he is serious, and he tells her that he has never been more serious about anything. He says that he loves her like a daughter, and he wants to make it official. Lina is overcome with emotion, tears streaming down her face. She tells him that she would be honored to be his daughter, and they embrace. Lina feels a profound sense of belonging and love, and she knows that she has found her true family. She cannot wait to tell Ren the news. Later that day, Lina goes to find Ren to tell him about Howard's offer. She finds him playing soccer on the hill behind the cemetery, and she runs over to him, breathless with excitement. She tells him the news, and Ren is overjoyed. He picks her up and spins her around, telling her that he is so happy for her. Lina laughs and tells him that she feels like the luckiest person in the world. Ren tells her that he feels like the luckiest person in the world too, because he is her. They kiss, and Lina feels a warmth spread through her chest. She knows that she has found her soulmate, and she's grateful for every moment they have together. They sit on the grass and talk about the future, making plans for their life together. Lina feels a sense of peace and happiness that she has never felt before, and she knows that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the Tuscan hills, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She is no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she is home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she's ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright, and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Lina knows that she has finally found her place in the world, and she's ready to face whatever comes next with Ren by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. She's no longer the lost girl who arrived in Italy with nothing but grief. She's a young woman who has found love, family, and a home. The chapter ends on a note of hope and happiness, with Lina looking forward to the future with optimism and joy. She knows that her mother would be proud of her, and she's determined to live her life to the fullest, honoring her mother's memory and embracing the love she has found. The final lines of the chapter leave the reader with a sense of warmth and satisfaction, knowing that Lina has found her happy ending. She's home, she's loved, and she is ready for whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren walking hand in hand through the cemetery, their future bright and full of promise. Lina feels a sense of peace and contentment that she has never felt before, and she knows that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. She's ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. The chapter ends with Lina looking up at the sky, feeling her mother's presence all around her, and whispering a quiet thank you for everything. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 26. The chapter opens with Lina and Ren continuing to build their life together in Florence, their relationship growing stronger and deeper with each passing day. Lina feels like she has finally found her place in the world, and she's grateful for every moment she gets to spend with Ren. She is also growing closer to Howard, and their bond has become something truly special. He is her father in every way that matters, and she cannot imagine her life without him. She's been taking Italian lessons and practicing with Ren, and she's proud of how much she has learned. She is also continuing her photography classes, inspired by her mother's legacy, and she feels a deep connection to her mother every time she picks up a camera. Lina feels like her life is finally coming together, and she's excited for the future. One afternoon, Lina receives a letter in the mail from Addie. It is a long, handwritten letter filled with updates about life back in Seattle. Addie tells Lina about her new job, her latest adventures, and how much she misses her. She also tells Lina that she's planning to come visit her in Italy over the summer, and Lina is overjoyed. She cannot wait to see her best friend and show her all the places she has come to love. She writes back immediately, telling Addie about her new life and how happy she is. She also tells Addie about Howard's offer to adopt her, and she shares her excitement about becoming officially part of his family. Addie is thrilled for her and promises to bring her favorite snacks when she visits. Lina feels a warmth spread through her chest, grateful for the friendship that has sustained her through the darkest moments of her life. Later that day, Lina goes to the cemetery to find Howard. She finds him at the wall of the missing, staring at the names of the soldiers who never came home. She walks up to him and asks if he is okay. Howard tells her that he was thinking about her mother, about how much he loved her and how much he misses her. Lina puts her hand on his arm and tells him that she misses her too. They stand together in silence for a moment, and Lina feels a deep connection to her mother's memory. She tells Howard that she's grateful for everything he has done for her, and he tells her that he's grateful for her too. Lina feels a profound sense of peace and contentment, knowing that she has found her true family. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the cemetery, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She is no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she is home. The final lines of the chapter capture the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she is ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright, and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Howard walking back to the house together, their bond stronger than ever. Lina knows that she has finally found her place in the world, and she is ready to face whatever comes next with her new family by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. She is no longer the lost girl who arrived in Italy with nothing but grief. She is a young woman who has found love, family, and a home. The chapter ends on a note of hope and happiness, with Lina looking forward to the future with optimism and joy. She knows that her mother would be proud of her, and she's determined to live her life to the fullest, honoring her mother's memory and embracing the love she has found. The final lines of the chapter leave the reader with a sense of warmth and satisfaction, knowing that Lina has found her happy ending. She's home, she is loved, and she is ready for whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina and Howard sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset together, their future bright and full of promise. Lina feels a sense of peace and contentment that she has never felt before, and she knows that she's exactly where she's supposed to be. She's ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. The chapter ends with Lina looking up at the sky, feeling her mother's presence all around her, and whispering a quiet "thank you for everything." Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 27. The chapter opens with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and contentment as she continues to settle into her new life in Italy. She's been living at the cemetery for several months now, and what once felt like a strange and intimidating place has become her sanctuary. She has grown close to Howard, and their relationship has blossomed into something truly special. He is her father in every way that matters, and she cannot imagine her life without him. She also continues to spend time with Ren, and their relationship has grown deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. They explore Florence together, visit the surrounding countryside, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. Lina feels like she has known Ren her whole life, and she cannot imagine her life without him. She is also continuing her photography classes, inspired by her mother's legacy, and she feels a deep connection to her mother every time she picks up a camera. Lina feels like her life is finally coming together, and she's excited for the future. One afternoon, Lina receives a letter from her grandmother. It is a long, heartfelt letter expressing how proud she is of Lina and how happy she is that she has found a home in Italy. She also tells Lina that she has decided to move into an assisted living facility with her grandfather and that she is at peace with her decision. Lina is sad to hear that her grandmother is moving, but she understands that it is the best decision for her and her grandfather. She writes back, telling her grandmother about her new life and how happy she is. She also tells her about Howard's offer to adopt her, and she shares her excitement about becoming officially part of his family. Her grandmother is thrilled for her and tells her that her mother would be so proud. Lina feels a warmth spread through her chest, grateful for the love and support of her family. Later that day, Lina goes to find Ren to tell him about her grandmother's letter. She finds him at his house and they sit in the garden together, talking about family and the future. Ren tells Lina that he wants to introduce her to his grandparents who live in a small village in the hills outside Florence. Lina is nervous but excited, and she agrees to meet them. Ren tells her that his grandparents are going to love her, and Lina feels a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. They spend the rest of the afternoon together, laughing and talking and planning for the future. Lina feels like she has finally found her place in the world, and she's grateful for every moment she gets to spend with Ren. The chapter ends with Lina reflecting on her journey and how far she has come. She has lost her mother, but she has gained a father and a new family. She has fallen in love and found her true home. She has discovered the power of her mother's love and the importance of following your heart. She knows that the future is full of possibilities, and she's excited to see what comes next. She looks out over the Tuscan hills, feeling a sense of belonging that she has never felt before. She's no longer a stranger in a foreign country. She is Lina, and she is home. The final lines of the chapter captured the themes of love, loss, and new beginnings, and Lina is ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. She takes a deep breath and smiles, feeling the warmth of the Italian sun on her face and the love of the people around her in her heart. She knows that she has found her place in the world, and she is ready to live her life to the fullest. The chapter ends with Lina feeling a profound sense of peace and happiness, finally having found her place in the world, and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she is supposed to be. The final lines of the chapter echo her mother's words from the journal, and Lina is ready to live her life with hope, love, and courage. She knows that the future is bright, and she's excited to see what it holds. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren embracing, the future stretching out before them full of possibility and love. Lina knows that she has finally found her place in the world, and she's ready to face whatever comes next with Ren by her side and the memory of her mother's love in her heart. She's no longer the lost girl who arrived in Italy with nothing but grief. She's a young woman who has found love, family, and a home. The chapter ends on a note of hope and happiness, with Lina looking forward to the future with optimism and joy. She knows that her mother would be proud of her, and she's determined to live her life to the fullest, honoring her mother's memory and embracing the love she has found. The final lines of the chapter leave the reader with a sense of warmth and satisfaction, knowing that Lina has found her happy ending. She's home, she is loved, and she is ready for whatever comes next. The chapter ends with Lina and Ren walking hand in hand through the garden, their future bright and full of promise. Lina feels a sense of peace and contentment that she has never felt before, and she knows that she's exactly where she's supposed to be. She's ready to embrace her future with open arms, knowing that her mother's love will always guide her. The chapter ends with Lina looking up at the sky, feeling her mother's presence all around her, and whispering a quiet thank you for everything. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she's grateful for the journey that has brought her to this moment. Lina is home, she is loved, and she is ready for whatever comes next. Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Chapter 28. The chapter opens with Lina calling Howard to come pick her up from Valentina's party. It takes him almost an hour to find the house because Lina does not know who Valentina is and cannot find anyone who knows the address. Selma, Valentina's mother with her bionic cleavage, is nowhere to be found, and Lina cannot find Elena or Marco or anyone else she recognizes from the party. Finally, she gets the bouncer to tell her where she is, but he does not speak much English and keeps guarding his clipboard from her like he thinks she's trying to trick him into getting access to the party. She finally forces her phone on him, and he gives directions to Howard. By the time Howard's car pulls up to the driveway, all the anger has drained out of Lina and she's about as perky as a wet noodle. She feels crumpled and bedraggled, and when she gets in the car, Howard does not even ask how it went. He can tell by her face that it was a rough night. When they get to the house, Lina throws her dress on the floor, puts on a t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants, and goes downstairs. She is on the verge of tears, but she cannot handle the thought of crying alone in her room again. She has reached her threshold of pathetic. Howard asks if she wants gelato or tea, and Lina chooses gelato. He tells her to go sit in the living room and he will bring her a bowl. She sits cross-legged on the couch, resting her head back against the wall, feeling completely defeated. Howard walks in with 2 bowls of gelato, strawberry and coconut, and apologizes for not having stracciatella, saying he can tell it is a stracciatella night. Lina says it is okay, and Howard asks if it was a rough night. Lina admits she does not think things are going to work out with Ren, not even friend-wise. Howard asks if their talk did not go well, and Lina says no, they actually got into an awesome screaming match and she called him a bad word in Italian, or at least she thinks it was a bad word. Howard asks what it was, and Lina says stronzo. He nods gravely, saying they can recover from stronzo. He reminds her that it is not over until it is over, and he tells her that for years he thought things were completely finished with her mother, but they actually started talking again before her diagnosis. Lina is surprised, and Howard explains that her mother sent him an email and they corresponded for almost a year. It was like they picked up right where they left off, just fun banter back and forth. Lina asks if they ever saw each other, and Howard says no. She probably knew that if he ever saw her again, he would carry her off, no questions asked. Lina says they basically have the saddest story she has ever heard, but Howard says he would not say that. There was a lot of good. Lina asks how to get over Ren, and Howard admits he is the worst person to ask because he fell in love and stayed that way. But he says it is worth it, quoting a line about how a life without love is like a year without summer. Lina says she's about ready for summer to be over, and Howard smiles, telling her to give it some time. It will be all right. Howard and Lina stay up really late talking. When Lina checks her phone, she has a 3-word text from Addie saying they said yes, meaning Addie's parents have agreed to let Lina live with them. Howard and Lina spend more than an hour discussing the pros and cons of staying or leaving Florence. Howard even pulls out a lined notebook and makes 2 columns with reasons to stay and reasons to go at the top. Lina does not add Ren to the list because she cannot decide which side he belongs on. Brokenhearted and see him every day, or brokenhearted and never see him again. Either one sounds incredibly miserable. Finally, Lina goes up to bed, where she spends the night tossing and turning. She realizes there is a reason they call it falling in love, because when it happens, that is exactly how it feels. There is no doing or trying, you just let go and hope that someone is going to be there to catch you. Otherwise, you are going to end up with some pretty hefty bruises. Lina must have dozed off eventually, because around 4 in the morning she wakes in a 5-alarm panic. Something has just hit her. She scrambles to her feet, her heart racing. Her window is as wide open as ever, and a dusting of stars glitter at her from the cemetery's treetops. Everything is calm and still as a lake, not a single ripple. She tries to convince herself she's just dreaming. But then she looks down and sees that there are coins everywhere. They're scattered across her bed and rug, and a few of them have even made it onto the dress, which is still lying in the world's saddest heap on the floor. They're mostly copper-colored 1 or 2 cent coins, but some of them are 20 or 50 cents, and there is even a 2 euro coin. Her bedroom is raining money. Another coin arcs through her open window, hitting her square in the face, and Lina does a dramatic tuck-in cover move that she learned in elementary school earthquake drills, but then she realizes what is going on. Someone is throwing money at her through her window. Either a government official is here to let her know she has won the Italian Powerball, or Ren is trying to wake her up. Either way, her night has just gotten a whole lot better. She jumps up and runs over to the window, and Ren is standing about 6 feet from the house, his arm cocked back to hurl another coin. Lina drops to the floor again, and Ren apologizes. She slowly raises herself back up, and she sees that Ren's jacket and tie are sprawled out on the grass, and he is holding a white paper bag in his non-throwing hand. She's so happy to see him, it makes her want to punch his lights out. They say hi, and Lina asks him to come down. She throws one leg over the windowsill and slowly climbs down the house, using uneven bricks as footholds. Ren holds his arms out to catch her, and she has to jump the last few feet, smashing into him and leaving them tangled up on the ground. They spring to their feet, and Ren says she could have used the stairs. Lina says stairs are for stronzos. A light turns on in Howard's room, and Ren whispers his name in terror. Lina grabs his hand and they run for the back fence, tripping over every single curb they come across. They reach the back wall, and Lina lies that Howard's light is off again. She turns to look at Ren, but she's so nervous her eyes keep sliding off his face. He seems to be having the same problem. He tells Lina that she really looked amazing tonight, that it was her version of the dress. Lina admits she does not think it worked, but Ren says it did. Trust him. He takes a deep breath and says he was pretty upset when he saw her with Thomas. Lina nods, ignoring the flicker of hope in her chest. Ren says he really needs to apologize, that he was pretty upset back in Rome when she said she had never, ever considered him as more than a friend. Lina protests that she only said ever twice, but Ren insists it was a slap in the face. He says when it comes to Thomas, he is a total idiot because Thomas is like a British pop star, and he asks how you compete with that. Lina groans and tells Ren that Thomas actually grew up near Boston, and when he gets really drunk he forgets about the British thing and sounds like a guy yelling at Red Sox games with letters painted on his beer belly. Ren is amused, and Lina apologizes for telling him she had never considered him as more than a friend. It was not true, she says. Ever. She also tells him he is not a stronzo. Ren smiles, and Lina asks where she learned that word. She admits it was from Mimi. Ren asks if she meant it back there when she said she's not with Thomas, and Lina nods. Ren says he's 100% available, and Lina's smile ramps up like 10 more degrees. They look at each other for another long minute, and Lina wonders if they are just going to stand around looking at each other. Ren takes a tiny step forward and asks if she finished the journal. Lina says yes, and she explains that she thinks her mother and Howard were perfect for each other. Things just got in the way. She also tells him that Howard knew all along that he was not her father. He just really wanted to be in her life. Ren holds out the white paper bag he has been carrying, saying it is an official apology. After he left the party, he went into Florence and started driving around asking people where he could find a secret bakery. Finally, some women walking home from a party told him where to go, and he found it on Via del Canto Rivolto. Lina opens the bag and warm, buttery heaven wafts up at her. It is a flaky, crescent-shaped pastry wrapped in white tissue paper. Ren says it is a cornetta con Nutella, and he bought 2 of them, but ate the other one on the way. He used his leftover change to wake her up. Lina takes a big bite of the cornetta, and it is warm and melty and tastes like every perfect thing that could ever happen to you, like Italian summers, first loves, and chocolate. She tells Ren that next time, please do not eat her other one. Ren laughs and says he was not sure if she was going to talk to him at all, but he knew food was probably his best bet. Lina takes a deep breath and tells Ren that she meant what she said at Valentina's, that he is the one she likes, maybe love. Ren grins and says that is good news because he maybe loves her too. They grin at each other, and a warm, spicy feeling drips straight through Lina's core. She can tell Ren is feeling the same thing because suddenly they are standing so close she can see every single one of his eyelashes. She thinks, "Kiss me, kiss me, kiss me." And Ren squints, saying he thinks she has Nutella on her face. Lina groans and tells him to just kiss her already, but she does not finish because he dives on her and they kiss. It is a really, really good kiss, and Lina realizes she has been waiting absolutely her entire life to be kissed by Lorenzo Ferrara in an American cemetery in the middle of Italy. They break apart, somehow having ended up on the grass, and they both roll on their backs and lie there looking up at the stars with big Christmas morning smiles. Lina asks if they can please count that as their first official kiss. Ren says first of many, but if it is okay with her, he is not going to forget that one in Rome either. Before he so rudely interrupted it, that kiss was pretty much the best thing that had ever happened to him. Lina says, "Me too." The chapter ends with Lina and Ren lying on the grass behind the cemetery, finally reconciled and ready to begin their relationship. Lina feels a profound sense of peace and happiness, knowing that she has found her place in the world and her heart's true home with Ren. She knows that her mother's love has guided her every step of the way, and she is ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that she is exactly where she's supposed to be. Lina is home, she is loved, and she is ready for whatever comes next.